Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
It's always some extreme shit.
I know. This is the most extreme, though. This is the closest I've ever come to dying, I think, doing one of these things. I just don't know why. My friend Jocko Willink, he sent me a video of his kid doing 20 minutes in the ice bath. Because the first time I did it, I bailed at like a minute and a half. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cold. And then last night I did it and I got to 4 minutes. And I was like, I think I can go further. And so today, what I decided to do is set a timer. So when I set a timer, like I had my phone timer on so I could look at the timer. And when I did that, I could stare and I knew exactly how much time was passed. And so I got to 5 minutes. That was my goal, to get to 5 minutes. I was like, fuck it, let's go for 10. I got to 10. I was like, fuck it, 15. And I got to 15, and then I was like, we're going to go for 20. And I got to 20 minutes. 33 degrees, too. I'm fucking freezing in there.
Jeez.
And then when I got to 20 and I got out, like, I could barely walk. And then I was shivering, like hardcore shivering in my house, shivering all the way over. It's 90 degrees in Texas. I'm driving, no AC on, windows rolled up, freezing. Normally I'd be like sweating like a pig in there. I was freezing, shivering the entire, like all the way over here. I got here. I'm wearing this sweatshirt because I had it laying around here. I put it on because I was freezing.
Yeah, while you were doing that, I was hitting my snooze button. I swear to God, that's what I was doing. Joe's right now in an ice bath trying to do another 5 minutes. I'm going to do another 5 minutes, too. I'm going to do another.
I don't know who's doing the right thing. You might be doing the right thing. I might be torturing myself.
Yeah.
It's probably like a point of diminishing returns. It's probably like 5 minutes or something.
You're very close to hypothermia.
Look at that. Mild hypothermia, 35 to 32 degrees. But is that your body? What?
I
Moderate.
was just looking up, like, the symptoms was the first couple things you were saying.
Shivering,
like,
yeah. Well, let me see what the symptoms are. Exhaustion, no. I'm definitely not exhausted.
Yeah, you weren't
confused. I'm confused as to why I did it. Fumbling hands, no. Memory loss, no. Slurred speech, no. Drowsiness, no. What's the difference between exhaustion and feeling tired or drowsiness? They're redundant. That seems a little, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, the breathing exercises, if you deep breathe through it, like in the beginning I was just kind of breathing normal, and then once it got real rough, I started doing these deep breathing exercises, like 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out, and then it was more tolerable.
Yeah, it's amazing what people do to... I was hanging by my thumbs for 6 hours. I'm like, I could do it. Let's just do it. Let's see if I could do it. Because my friend sent me a video of his kid hanging by his thumbs, and I was like, I bet I could do it longer. Like, what is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I do.
All the stuff, you guys, it's always like you can't eat, but once every 36 hours, you got to breathe through your nose, and then your mouth will expand, and you'll have the right bite. And I'm like, what? All this crazy shit I never knew about.
Yeah, I've gotten this, like... accidental education on this show. Just wanting to talk like James Nestor, the Breathe guy.
The guy who makes the palate bigger, literally makes it. Did you do that?
No, I didn't do that.
Didn't do that.
No, I didn't do that. I do the breathing exercises, but that's like a type of breathing. I think you're supposed to do something as you do. What is that called? Mewing? Isn't it called mewing? There's like a thing that they say that people do to sort of expand your palate. It changes the inside of your mouth somehow or another. Well, apparently our mouths, mewing is the placement of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, which proponents say can reshape the face and help correct orthodontic breathing and facial structural issues. It was developed by an orthodontist named John Mew in the 1970s.
So now, why don't more people do that?
Why don't more people do a lot of things? There's deep breathing exercises are phenomenal for your immune system. They're phenomenal for relaxation, for alleviate anxiety. There's a lot of different things that you can do that people don't do because they're hard. You know? It's like we have to overcome. I mean, that's the thing. It's like overcoming this sort of hesitancy to do things that are difficult.
Well, that's the short-term, long-term, right? So if you want a long-term gain or a short-term gain, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point of life, right? Like you got to be able to take pain, but every time I put a mask on, I think of that episode where you talk about breathing through your nose.
Yeah.
Because if I breathe through my mouth with a mask on, it smells horrible. My breath, I never knew I had such bad breath. I'm like, wow, it's like, holy shit, like I'm farting out of my mouth. This is horrible. I don't know how people wear masks all goddamn day. So
you
even when
really have to change masks.
even when I'm on the
wash
plane,
it.
I'll take a little blanket and I'll put it over, and then I'll take my mask off because I can't sit there like that. And I act like I'm like that. I just
Right.
I can't do it. I don't know how people wear masks people who have to go to work and wear masks all day and they don't get paid double. That's crazy.
It is crazy, and it's not healthy for you. I don't think.
How could that be?
It can't be. I read or listened rather to this doctor describing masks, and he said there's a certain amount of viral load that the mask will filter out. He goes, but essentially, I wear a mask so that people don't think I'm an asshole. He said, when you use a mask, it's essentially like a chain link fence trying to stop a handful of sand. He goes, some of it will get stopped. He goes,
really?
He goes, but why do you wear a mask? He goes, you wear a mask so that people don't think you're an asshole and then people realize you care. Unless you're wearing a very tight-fitting N95 mask, it's really sealed off. And then, how are you getting air in? These things that Reggie Watts told us about. They're these headgear things.
Yeah,
a HEPA filter.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, we have those out there. They're like space suit helmets.
Yeah.
Those are legit.
Yeah.
Like that thing, you actually tighten it on your neck.
It's like an astronaut.
Yeah.
And then
that's, Reggie was like, this is what I'm going to wear when I travel. I'm like, yeah, why not? You're a fucking wild dude. Reggie Watts is wearing a spacesuit everywhere.
I was going to do that.
Why not?
Because I had an offer to go to Italy, and I was like, well, but I was afraid to risk, getting sick. This is last year, and so then I wasn't going to go. And it's like, no, you can't even travel to Italy. You can't go anywhere, and so everything got bad. But I think it's gonna. Are you afraid about the dates?
There's Reggie.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have them outside. Look at Reggie. He's so wild.
But aren't you afraid that
dates going to get canceled?
Yes.
Yes.
It's all
100%.
going to start happening again.
Yes, I am, and I'm just accepting it. I'm just zen. It is what it is. It's not the worst thing that can happen is dates get canceled. I've had a date scheduled for 4/20 in Vancouver for the past 2 years. It was supposed to be 4/20 of 2020, and now it's going to be 4/20 of 2022. Okay, because you can't even get there.
Right.
There's no. Obviously, 4/21 is gone, and 4/20. Even they're opening up Canada in August, so it might not even happen then. We're supposed to be in Vancouver.
You mean Canada's not open right now?
Not really.
Not like the United States?
You can kind of get in, but I think it's a big deal, and you have to quarantine. Are they open to international travel? I think when you're a Canadian resident. Like Matty Madison, the chef, he was here, and he said that he had a quarantine for 2 weeks when he went back.
That's quite a name, Matty Madison.
He's a bad motherfucker.
I always like names like that. Chris Christie, Matty Madison.
Yeah.
That'd be like if I was Jimmy Jimmyson. Hey, look, it's Joe Joeyson. How are you, Joey Joe?
It's a weird time, but it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. So I just accept it. So if dates get canceled, there's worse things.
Yeah. All right, well, it's good talking to you, Joe.
Good
I'm going to take
off.
It is what it is. All right. Take care. Good to see you, Jamie.
What can you do? Other than try to stay healthy. Try to stay healthy and
Here's a weird thing. So well, maybe I shouldn't say this. No, I won't say.
Okay. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird time when you talk about things openly, right? Because there's certain things that if you just discuss them honestly, people are going to get furious at you.
Yeah.
There's certain opinions that if you hold these opinions, people are going to get furious at you.
So to me, that's the worst byproduct of a Trump presidency was that you're not allowed to question things. You're not allowed to have certain thoughts,
right?
And if you have certain thoughts, you're considered deplorable. You're and it's it's real. That's a real thing happening. And just like for instance, remember when if you gave the theory that the virus started in a lab,
yes,
that you were canceled and that was misinformation, and then Jon Stewart goes on Stephen Colbert and does the funniest bit in the world about it. And
Even though Colbert was trying to like
he was trying
hamstring
to.
it.
Oh, he was doing the opposite of what comedians are supposed to do. He
Right.
wasn't doing yes and.
Right.
So
right.
when Jon Stewart was being hilarious, he kept trying to take the legs out from underneath the
Oh,
bit.
I'd like to see some evidence if you have any evidence.
How
I'd
long
like
have
to
you
see
How long
it.
have you worked for Ron Johnson? It's like, what in the f are you doing? This guy's doing a brilliant comedy
I know.
bit, and he is so shit-libbed. Stephen Colbert, his brain is so shit-libbed that he can't even go along with the bit. He has to break comedy rules to save his shit-libbed reputation. And Jon Stewart at one point just walked away from him and went right towards the camera. You saw, he's like, well, I'm done with you.
Well, he just had to keep the momentum going. He was being cockblocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody noticed that, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't
Oh,
just me.
Every comic. Yeah, we
Okay,
noticed
good.
it for sure. Because
All
we
right.
know that feeling. When like if there's a heckler and you're in the middle of a bit, you're going to
Yes.
stop. You know, you walk away from the heckler and you walk to the rest of the room.
That's what he did.
Yeah.
And, God damn, Stephen Colbert, he used to be my favorite.
He was amazing on The Daily Show. Amazing. He was so good.
And then when
on The Colbert Show,
and on
he
the
was
Colbert,
amazing.
I mean, that character he did.
Apparently he's going to do that again.
Really?
I don't know.
hope
I
so.
saw some video. He's going back to Comedy Central. There's something with him going back to Comedy Central. That character was fucking brilliant.
And it was a brilliant show. Now, the show he does now is not as good as that show, not even close.
No.
It's one of those surface level conversation things. And then when someone does come in with something brilliant, he has to not shut it down because it might offend who knows who it might offend.
The beautiful thing about those shows is it really helps guys like us.
Yes,
It really does.
I know.
Because you can talk about things in long form and not be interrupted. Charlemagne the God and Stephen Colbert to launch late night TV talk show. I know that. So is that what it is?
That's what this says. This is how it's. I mean, this article at least says
So
that this is how
Charlemagne-
he's coming back as being the producer of the show. Or something like that.
Okay.
They haven't
well,
fully said so.
Charlemagne's awesome. That would be great.
So we'll
That'll
see.
be great.
Yeah.
That'll be great. But again, better if it's on the internet because you don't get interrupted. Like there's this thing where you're interrupting the flow of the conversation that it stops these, I don't have to tell you, but for the people that are listening, your mind is, when you're having these conversations with people, your mind is sort of going to like, where does this go next? And what about this? And what about that? And you want to listen to the person, but you also have some thoughts. You're waiting to interject, and all that stuff gets hamstrung when you have 5 minutes and then you have to cut to commercial. And then also you're working for a large corporation. And there's, whether it's a spoken pressure or it's just a known pressure, particularly to adhere to these very distinct ideas that everybody's propagating, whatever those ideas are. And it's mostly these liberal leftist ideas that you're getting from these Hollywood studios. Whether they've thought through these things or not, it's like, if you want to work, you better adhere to these ideas, and you better adhere to these, you better say these things.
Yeah, I mean, well, we all know that there was the letter that was CAA sent to Tulsi Gabbard, right? Do you know about that, right? And they were like,
No.
when she wouldn't back Hillary Clinton, and they sent. Now this is going back years ago, so it's hard for me to remember. But yeah, they were like threatening her, like, "Hey, you better get on board with Hillary and all this stuff," and it was from the CAA, and so.
This is from 2016.
Yeah, it's back then. And
Is it available?
check it out. Can you Google that, see if that whatever comes up for that? But pretty please. So I'm not giving misinformation.
Yeah.
But you can't and that's the beauty of like YouTube or podcasts, is because there's no gatekeeper.
Right.
And so they don't know how to control me, someone like me. Now I get to just say whatever I want all the time, and it turns out there's a lot of people who like that, and they like what I'm saying, and they can't be controlled, and they don't know what to do. So what they do is like they'll write hit pieces on you, right?
Yeah.
On me, they've done that, right? So like when I was pushing Force the Vote, I don't know if you know what that was.
Sure. But explain it to people maybe who don't.
So Force the Vote was
I'll let you do that. I'll bring it back up.
okay. So Force the Vote was when the Democrats got a majority in the House, but it was a very slim majority. It was like somewhere around 8, 9, 10 votes, something like that. It wasn't that many votes. And we realized that the squad, the Justice Democrats, now had enough members that they couldn't elect the speaker without their votes. So if they withheld their votes, Nancy Pelosi could not become speaker. And so everybody had always thought that getting a vote on the floor of the House for Medicare for all was a big goal of the left, just to get a vote. Nancy Pelosi's been said in 1994, we should have a vote for single payer. And of course, AOC said famously that we can't even get a vote. She was lamenting. She's saying the Democratic Party is a center-right party, and we can't even get a vote on Medicare for all. Well, here's a way you can get it. You can withhold your vote from Nancy. You use leverage, just like the Tea Party did. They're called the Freedom Caucus. They drove John Boehner crazy to the point where he stepped down because they couldn't pass anything without their votes, the Freedom Caucus. Same thing right now. All the leverage is in the hands of that squad, and they could use it, but they refused to do it. And so I made a push for them to do this. And it was obvious they didn't want to do it. And
what do you think is holding them back? Is there?
I think it's what's going on is that as Chris Hedges says, politics attracts the most mediocre people to begin with. And they're narcissists and they're self-dealers. And so once they got power, they realized I don't really want to go against the establishment because I don't want to feel the wrath of the establishment. I don't want to feel the wrath of Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, Big Pharma, and all that, and the party coming down on me. Because if you're in Congress, you're going to get speaking fees. You're going to speaking gigs. You're going to get a book deal. And if you're in Congress for 5 years, you get a pension for the rest of your life. So these people do not want to upset the apple cart like they ran on. They ran on literally. AOC was saying that calls a ruckus. And they don't want to be pushed, but we have to push them, and we have to stop being polite. That's what she said.
So you think they get into office, and then all the benefits of being in office then start to show themselves, and they get a little bit
And so right now,
by
if you voted for people in the squad, they've been going along with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden 100%. They said they gave Joe Biden an A. That was the progressives giving Joe Biden, who's not doing anything he campaigned. He campaigned on the public option. We're not getting the public option for health care. He campaigned on a $15 minimum wage. We're not getting $15 minimum wage. We're not getting it at all. And by the way, so the squad could use their leverage to make him do these things and to decriminalize marijuana. He's going the other way. He's ramping up the drug war again.
But isn't Schumer trying to push legalizing?
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
What Chuck Schumer is too progressive for Joe Biden. That's it. The biggest tool of Wall Street. That's why Chuck Schumer is the leader, by the way. Chuck Schumer is not the leader because he's a leader that people want to follow. Chuck Schumer is the leader because Wall Street gives him the most cash that he then divvies out to the rest of the senators. And that's why he's the leader, because they need his cash. And he's the biggest puppet of Wall Street. But that's why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are president and vice president. Wall Street first picked Kamala Harris on Martha's Vineyard. That was their first pick. They thought they had another Obama. Because if you remember, Obama was the darling of Wall Street. In fact, his entire cabinet came from an email that was given to him from Citigroup. We now know that from WikiLeaks, right? So, and everybody in that email from Citigroup ended up in Barack Obama. Barack Obama got more money from Wall Street than John McCain when he ran. People forget that. So they're the ones who are choosing who are president and vice president. Now, we don't have real elections. We get selections. We have selections, right? So they picked Kamala Harris. Turns out Kamala Harris couldn't get a goddamn vote. She couldn't get a vote or a delegate. Nobody liked her. So they switched.
Tulsi Gabbard kind of put the screws into
he
that,
heard her.
right?
She heard her, yeah.
Yeah, she heard her bad in that debate.
But, I think Kamala Harris was just transparent. I think people saw she was nothing, and anyway. So they went to their next person, their next most reliable guy. Who's that? Joe Biden is the most reliable guy from Wall Street. He's the guy who criminalized bankruptcy. He made, if you get medical debt, now you can't get rid of it. I mean, he did everything he could for Wall Street, and he's done it. He's no friend of the working man, Joe Biden, obviously. And so that's how we got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They're Wall Street's number one and number two. And that's what happens. And so we don't have elections. We do have selections. And this idea that voting Democrat, Joe Biden, I was told that you have to vote for Joe Biden because of kids in cages. Well, the kids are still in cages, Joe. I don't know if you know that, but I guess they should be honored that they are being caged by the lesser of two evils.
Well, you can't film them now, which is very strange, where they try to stop people from filming them.
So it's just censorship now. That's all they have now left is censorship.
It's so disheartening to see the left advocating for censorship instead of pushing the correct ideas, instead of like having open debates about these ideas to prove their point or to argue their point. They want to silence the opposing point of view. And where we're seeing the problem with this, clearly what you just described earlier with the lab leak theory. The lab leak theory under Trump was something that they wanted to suppress. So if you pushed that lab leak theory, if you even discussed it on Facebook, they yanked it. They took it down. But now they're saying it's the most likely scenario. And even Fauci is forced to admit that this is a possibility. And that weird conversation that he had with Rand Paul, where he's saying that it's molecularly impossible, according to the data from China. Like, hey, when did we start listening to the data from China as being 100% accurate? This is crazy talk.
Fauci, he sounds like a used car salesman. He's like, that's not gain of function. This is the definition, right? That's not what I have people qualified up and down the line. What you mean, people qualified that you handpicked?
Yeah, that's
he just
the
goes,
problem.
people qualified up and down the. Up that you picked that rely on you to get a job. And of course, the soundbite out of that was, you don't know what you're talking about. That was the soundbite that all the people that got played. Play the whole thing.
Well, that's the weird thing, is that there's two narratives. And there was the narrative from the right, is that Rand Paul called him out and proved that he was not telling the truth about gain-of-function research. And then the narrative on the left was Fauci owns Rand Paul.
Yes.
It was just like, Jesus Christ, you guys are like little kids. He owned him? Like, is that what it is? He scolded him. He told him.
Right.
He told him whatnot. Is that what happened? Like, it's so strange.
Well, the first time, not this last time, but the first time I saw Rand Paul giving it to Fauci about gain of function, he mentioned the doctor's name. He said, Dr. Joe
Peter
Blow,
Daszak.
whatever the name was, he said, that's not gain of function.
Yeah.
And Fauci goes, no, that's not gain of function. And if it is, it's being done under the right regulation. Like, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
He contradicted himself right there. Right. That's not gain of function, what he's doing. But if it is, it's being done correctly. What the F? So he's being like a politician. He's being like, oh, come on, you got... Buy this new, it's an 84 Corolla. It's really good.
But it's so strange that this has become a political issue when you're literally talking about the possibility, and I'm just saying the possibility because obviously I don't know, that the research that was funded by the NIH through that,
Echo
Health, what is it called?
Echo Health Alliance?
Right, Echo Health Alliance produced this virus.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know, but this is the possibility that needs to be investigated.
Yeah.
3 people from that lab were sick in November of 2019, and one of their spouses wound up dying.
Right, and now people are saying that that's all CIA ops. That's the CIA's making or leaking that story because they want to advance the Cold War with China. Now, does
that make any sense?
Does the CIA want a Cold War? Does the establishment want a Cold War with China? Yes. But you can't then turn your eye to science just because. Right. So would this serve their narrative? Yeah, but at the same time, you can't just. So they can't, I remember the former head of the CDC was on CNN with Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and he said that his theory was it was started in a lab.
Yeah.
He said, but it doesn't matter what my opinion is. He said science is going to figure this out.
And they went after him.
Well, yeah, but
which is amazing.
Right. It's like he said, it's my opinion. Why? Yeah. And now Fauci shares that same opinion. And so, but how long does this take for science to figure out?
This is why censorship is so dangerous. And it's one of the reasons why censorship is so dangerous. But it's also why having these ideas that go against if you're objectively looking at the facts, you have to ignore some of them because they don't go along with the party line.
Right.
That's scary to me.
That's scary.
That's really scary because then you're getting into self-censorship because people are afraid.
People are self-censoring. Yes. I'm self-censoring on this show right now.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff we were talking about out there. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And right now, I just saw a thing where PayPal is hooking up with the ADL and to suppress people who are doing bad speech. So if the ADL, that's the Anti-Defamation League.
So PayPal is hooking up with them so that if you...
So I just saw this today.
So you can't use PayPal if you say something that they don't agree with? Like, what is bad speech?
You tell me, but you know how they're doing that. If they don't like what you say...
Here it is.
What's this? PayPal to research transactions that fund hate groups.
But didn't they label Sam Harris as an extremist?
So that's the problem. So then once you start letting some jagoffs decide who's an extremist and who isn't, I think it's an extremist. I think Joe Biden is an extremist. Right now, Joe Biden, while he's denying people health care in America and a living wage, is bombing the poorest people in Africa right now, Somalia. Do you know 50% of Somalia are nomads?
Yeah.
And we're bombing that goddamn
what's going
country.
on in Somalia? I'm
you
not
tell
aware
me
of
why
this at
we're
all.
bombing. I don't know. There must be some oil there, or maybe batteries, lithium. Who knows? There's something there.
I'm not even aware of this.
Yeah, he just started bombing.
Is this today?
No, last week. I did a story on it already. It's up on my channel.
Your fucking show is fantastic, by the way.
Oh, please, keep saying that. Please say that again.
I love it.
That's
I watch
very
it.
sweet.
I watch it all the time. You're a true independent. You know, you're really allowed to say your full opinion on your show, and the way you do it is it's very brave. And I love the fact that there's a platform. Like, you know, as much as shit as people talk about YouTube, and I don't agree with their censorship at all, but I think part of the problem with YouTube is they're managing at scale, right? There's fucking millions and millions of videos coming in, and who's doing it?
Right.
It's arbitrary and it's subjective. You have people working for them that are choosing what gets banned and what doesn't get banned, and then they have to come in and clean up the mess. We've had many of our shows when we were on YouTube that were demonetized. But then a lot of them, when we challenged it, someone else looked at it and said, "No, these are okay."
Yeah,
And
but
they let
it's
it
too
through.
late.
It's too late.
So you
lose a lot
already
of
got all
income.
your views, and so now
Right.
you're not going to get any revenue off it.
And that's where self-censorship comes in. So whether or not there's like this gigantic plot to make people self-censor, whether this is planned out, I tend to think it's a little bit of both. I think more than that, it's managing at scale. I don't think YouTube's an evil company. I think they're dealing with fucking insane amounts of volume.
I totally understand why they're doing what they're doing. Because the independent news space causes a lot of problems for their revenue model, and they get all this bad press from the establishment press because the independent news space on YouTube is direct competition to the establishment media.
Right.
So what happens is they write all these hit pieces about how YouTube independent news people, how they're all radicals and crazy, and they're poisoning your kids' minds and making them radical. And they did articles where they stuck me in with Nazis and pedophiles, and the Jimmy Dore Show saying the stuff about the Syria is false flags. Turns out I was 100% right. That still sits in my Wikipedia page. So
does it really?
Yes,
it hasn't been
Wikipedia is
amended?
totally controlled. You cannot get the truth, especially if you're anti-war. If you're anti-war, you're fucked on Wikipedia. They put in every smear ever written about me, but I'm not allowed to put the stuff in that exonerate me. Like, it'll say CNN Business said Jimmy Dore is a conspiracy theorist, calling the gas attacks in Syria false flags. Well, it turns out I was proven right by the OPCW whistleblowers and Aaron Mate's great reporting.
Can you explain that to people? Because if people are not like really balls deep into politics, they might not understand, especially international politics, this whole Syria false flag.
So they've been trying
thing.
they've been trying to overthrow Syria for decades, right? So this is not a new thing, but they're pretending like it all started with the Arab Spring, and it didn't. How it started was the CIA funded a program called Timber Sycamore. Look it up. And what we did was we funded terrorists, right? Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and we funneled a lot of arms from Libya, which we had just turned into a failed state, through Turkey into Syria. And so we created a war, what they call a dirty war in Syria, and because we want to overthrow Assad. And how do you make him out to be, he's gassing his people, he's doing these things. So you got to make him propaganda to get people on board. And they said the first thing they did was a gas attack, right? Remember, they wanted Barack Obama to bomb him in like 2014, 2013.
Right. And that was when Barack Obama had a press conference, and the public
said no.
Like, you almost unanimously people
said,
were
we don't want you to bomb.
furious about this idea that we're going to go to war with another country.
Turns out he fucking did it anyway, right? So he just didn't do it officially. They dropped more bombs so many bombs in Syria. They ran out of bombs when Barack Obama was president. The Air Force, that's also a real news story. Look it up. The Air Force
ran out of bombs?
Runs out of bombs. I think they dropped 26,000 bombs. They know that Barack Obama and Joe Biden dropped more bombs than Dick Cheney and George Bush. Did you know that?
What?
Yes. See, this is the thing, Joe. This is why I have my show. And this is why it's so easy to out. So here it is.
U.S. is running out of bombs to drop on ISIS. Holy shit.
2015. Look at that. They ran out of bombs. The U.S. Air Force has fired off more than 20,000 missiles and bombs since the U.S. bombing campaign.
Okay, but if you talk to people that are in the military, the idea that I'm getting from them was that they wanted to get rid of ISIS, that ISIS is bad. So when you read this and you say they're dropping bombs on ISIS, what's the actual story?
So they're doing both. They're fighting ISIS and funding, and
and funding
the same people, right? So the military might be fighting ISIS in one moment, and the CIA might be funding them in the next.
Behind the sudden death of a $1 billion secret CIA war in Syria, What is this, Jamie?
It's 2017. It's like it's explaining everything he was talking about.
Yeah.
Like 2 minutes ago.
Wow.
So it's a bombing. The bombing helped hollow out rebel army backed by the CIA. So they're trying to overthrow. And by the way, I show on my show from 2006 an interview with Christine Amanpour and Christine Amanpour. I like to say Christine Amanpour.
Why do you say it like that?
I like to say words funny. I used to say Barack Obama, and then Jon Stewart said it, so I had to stop.
Oh, okay.
So I like saying names funny anyway. You know, it makes me laugh down to my stomach.
Okay.
And like that. I don't know why that makes me laugh.
You're a comic.
And so that's what's code. So they've been trying to overthrow Assad, and there's a lot of different reasons why they want to do it. Israel, of course, has influence and interest because Assad and Iran are.
But this is not in any way, shape, or form saying Assad's a good guy.
No.
Right.
No. Name a head of a country that is.
Right. So Assad.
You know, the United States is running a torture program right now in Guantanamo Bay as we're trying to put sanctions on Cuba.
Yeah.
So they're putting sanctions on Cuba because they don't take care of their people enough. Or we care about the Cuban people. And I'm like, they talk about sanctions, which are murderous, right? People can't get their diabetes medicine. They can't get heart operations because we have these sanctions on them. And people talk about sanctions on Cuba like it's a kitchen remodel. It's like, yeah, just get a little white vinegar on that populace, rub it out. It's unfucking believable. So, so Assad is not a good guy. Joe Biden, not a good, horrible guy, running a torture program. The United States is the biggest penal colony in America. We imprison black and brown people at unbelievable rates. We are the terrorists in the rest of the world. We turned Libya into a failed state. We are just ramping up bombings in Afghanistan. Today is the headline in USA Today. We did Iraq.
I want to hear all this, but I don't want to go too far off of Syria because I want to.
So getting back to Syria is they had all these terrorists, literal terrorists, funded by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, those kind of types of people, and the CIA, trying to overthrow Assad. Now Assad beat them, and so the reason why they would stage these fake gas attacks was because they wanted the United States to have a reason to join them and overthrow Assad because the American people already told Barack Obama we don't want. So they would
stage fake gas attacks, what exactly was done, and how do we know what was done?
So we know what was done because of the OPCW whistleblowers. So the OPCW,
what does that stand for?
For the prevention of chemical weapons, right? So the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons. I'm pretty sure that's what that stands for. Or for the prohibition of chemical weapons, OPCW, right? So that's the official organization that goes in. And they're supposed to be independent. And it turns out they've been being influenced by NATO and Western government powers. And we found this out because of the OPCW. So they go in to do the initial investigation to see where the gas attack, whether it's real, who did it, all this stuff. So the engineering report got suppressed. The engineering report said this didn't happen. It said this cylinder was placed there. It wasn't dropped from the sky. It didn't happen. They suppressed those reports. So anything that was in the initial OPCW report that debunked the gas attack narrative got suppressed. And so then these whistleblowers came out, and this guy Aaron Mate, who's a great journalist, works at the Gray Zone, he highlighted this, and he testified in front of the UN about this, and he's caught all these people at the OPCW lying and suppressing stuff, and nobody in the American mainstream press will cover this. Nobody's writing their article on Syria. Aaron Mate's written at least 10 articles detailing what happened in Syria. No one's written an article to debunk one thing he's written. Not anybody. So what this is we're trying to overthrow another goddamn government in the Middle East, just like we did in Iraq, just like we did in Libya, and now we're trying to do it in Syria. I don't know if you remember General Wesley Clark was on Democracy Now! I don't know if you've ever seen this video.
Seen it. It's amazing.
So he said after 9/11, he went into the Pentagon and his buddy called him in and he goes, hey, look, what are we doing? We're going to war in Iraq. And he's like, why are we going to war in Iraq? And he said, I don't know. But we got a big military and we can take out governments.
We should play this. I've played it before, but we should play it so that this is a standalone podcast so people can listen to this and listen to
General Wesley Clark say, and
a hugely respected general say how he was told that there's this plan.
There's a plan
to do these things.
To go into all these countries that we're currently going into.
And this was when did he do this? In 2007,
something like that on Democracy Now.
Yeah.
So you can we insert that or
we'll play it. We'll play it just so we can refresh.
And Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz, I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got come in, you got to come in and talk to me a second. I said, well, you're too busy. He said, no. He says, we've made the decision we're going to war with Iraq. This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, we're going to war with Iraq? Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
So there it is. We're bombing Somalia. We're bombing Libya. We're bombing Syria.
The truth is,
and
is there so you were talking about this whole gas attack thing. Is there any ambiguity? Is there any confusion? Is there any we're not sure about this, we're not sure about that? Like what? How it's
so no, there's not in my head. There isn't, because even at the time, Joe, when these gas attacks happened, they happened when Assad was winning the war against the terrorists. He was winning, and so then they do this gas attack to try to get the Americans and give them a reason to join in. So why would Assad? It doesn't make any sense. Why would he do the one thing that he knows would bring the United States into this war and they could beat him? So why would he do that? And by the way, the gas attack, what did it kill? 50 people, 100 people? It's not like these are effective. It just makes no sense that they would do it. None of it made sense. And so,
the idea was that he used it on his own people because they were rebelling against him.
Yeah,
is that what the idea?
That's the idea. But this was debunked by Robert Fisk originally. So I was aware of Robert Fisk's reporting, who passed away recently. But he was one of the most decorated war correspondents in all of Europe. And he went there, and he was like, he interviewed the doctors, and all. He's like, yeah, this didn't happen. This doesn't match up. And nobody else reported that. Joe, why won't people report this stuff in the United States? You tell me why the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, or The Intercept, they won't do a goddamn article on this. They won't do an article on Syria. In fact, The Intercept did a big thing on Joe Biden's warmongering, and they stopped right at where it came to Syria. They didn't keep going, which was very cowardly and very revealing, right? And so, The Intercept's another very pro-censorship organization. Greg Lingwald had to leave that organization because they were censoring him, the guy who founded it. You know that, right?
Yeah, I do know that. It's very disturbing, right? All of this is disturbing because as a person who's on the outside, you don't know, especially me, I'm really on the outside. At least you're a political guy.
Yeah.
I just have to rely on people like you and Kyle Kalinske and Crystal and Sagar, and I need people to explain things to me that are independent. I mean, this is why people like you are so important to me, because I can get real information that's not been filtered down through the powers that be.
I mean, it's exactly what Eisenhower said, that we must resist the undue influence of the military-industrial complex, and guess what? We're not resisting it.
They think that they're doing enough good and resisting enough that they'll let a few things slide because this is how they stay in operation? Like, what do you think the motivation is behind it? Because I'm sure the people from The Intercept, and I'm sure that people from a lot of these organizations, they think of themselves as being on the right side. Right? They think of themselves being on the right side of history. They think of when you're talking about the Washington Post or the New York Times, most of the people working there, maybe I'm delusional. I think they're good people, and I think they think that they're progressive and that they're doing the right thing. So what happens?
I think Jeff Bezos hires the most progressive people. Dr. Evil is running a newspaper that, by the way, he had a contract with the CIA, which was worth like 2 or 3 times what he fucking paid for the paper. So you're not getting the truth from every time. So if you
do you think he actively is involved in the Washington Post stories?
But if you read Manufacturing Consent, right?
Yeah, I've read it.
So you see how that's how censorship happens,
Yeah.
right? So it happens by who funds it,
Right.
Right. It happens by who they hire. Like I was on a panel one time in San Francisco, and it was being hosted by this Emmy Award-winning news guy from NBC, and I was talking about how bad the establishment news is and how they all have groupthink and they all go. And he goes, Jimmy, you know when we're in editorial meetings, we don't all talk like that. I don't think you know what we talk about when we're in editorial meetings. And I go, I don't, because I'll never be invited into one of those editorial meetings because I've been coloring outside the lines my whole life, whereas you have been groomed to be in that editorial meeting since you're in fucking kindergarten and you don't even know it.
How important is a guy like Chomsky when you think about manufacturing consent and you think about what he exposed? Like, when was that book written?
I don't know. Was it in the late 80s or I think?
I think it was somewhere around then. But that guy...
And that was before the consolidation of media.
Right.
So that was when there were still 50 giant media companies. And now there's only 5 or 6 thanks to Bill Clinton, no friend of the working man. Bill Clinton did the Telecommunications Act in 1996, which took us from 50 giant media companies and took us down to 6, right? And the answer was, we can do that because the internet exists now. So the internet, that's going to open up everything. We're going to have lots of different voices, except we don't because now we have censorship. And where is the censorship coming from? The authoritarian left. They would rather shut people up. It's so weird, Joe, because I'm a natural, anti-establishment guy. I'm a freaking comedian, right? I'm an outsider. Whatever the thing is, I want to go against it. I'm a contrarian. So whatever the fucking thing is, and now you can't do that on social media, and people on the left cheer it on. They cheer on, we got to get rid of that bad information. Like they cheered on with Alex Jones. And how stupid. It's like you guys don't know they start with the guy who's easiest to censor first, and then it's going to come down to you.
Right.
And exactly what happened. I mean, I remember watching Jacobin, right? I used to have these arguments at the Young Turks. They were for censorship, still are. They're very pro-censorship. And so I remember Anna Kasparian, who was the co-host of that, she had one of her videos at Jacobin magazine that got Facebook censored. And they were making a big deal out of it. Like, stop advocating for censorship and you won't be censored. And she's like, she goes, when have I ever been for censorship? Like when you censored, we were for censoring Alex Jones. She goes, besides that. What do you mean besides that? That's how it starts. Free speech is an absolute. If Alex Jones was doing something illegal, there's a government body, there's a law enforcement agency that's supposed to take care of that. And if he's not doing something illegal, then he deserves a printing press because that's what Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube is. It's a printing press. And it's like you can't take away someone's printing press because you don't agree with what they're saying. They have to break a law, and you have to go to court. And that's how it should be. And all these goddamn social media platforms should be considered utilities. You know that, and I know that.
I agree 100% in that.
Like, for instance, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you couldn't start a business, Joe, without a telephone. How could you compete? If AT&T took away your telephone because they didn't like the shit you were saying on your telephone, you couldn't run a business, right? That was unfair. But today, you can't run a business without a Facebook page or a Twitter account or a YouTube. And they can censor you over that. They can take that away from your business. And that's not right.
Which brings me to something that's really disturbing. The recent decisions to try to censor SMS messages. So that's standard text messages that may include erroneous information or misinformation. This is something that they talked about.
That's not chilling? Is that not chilling?
It's terrifying because here's what people need to understand. If you think that this misinformation could possibly cost lives and that you want to censor it because you want to preserve life and you want to preserve the truth, the problem is now they have a tool to decide what you say or don't say through private communication, which is what a text message is. And the way they're doing this is by saying someone can send out a mass text to a bunch of people, and in that there could be misinformation, and they want to be able to stop that from happening.
That's what every dictator says.
Right. But if it's a mass text, how do you stop a single text? Well, you use the same tools. And once those tools become available for this, don't think they're going to put it away once this problem is over. They're not.
No.
They're going to make sure the problem is never over. They're going to make sure, which is what you're talking about with the CIA bombing in Syria, where they're playing on both sides.
Yes.
They will do that with everything. You've seen this thing recently with the Governor Whitmer.
Yeah, that was the FBI.
The 12 different informants were involved in this. 6 defendants, 12 informants. Have you seen that that meme, Jamie? The Spider-Man meme? See, here, I sent it to you. Put it up because it's one of my favorite memes ever. It's hilarious. There's a meme of all these Spider-Man, like that they're all feds, and they're all pointing at each other, and it says one poor autistic guy is standing there like not knowing because he's the guy they've talked into
Yeah.
this. Look at this. Some autistic fuck. Look at this. Fed, another fed. And I mean, this is what that whole plot to kidnap the governor was not just a bunch of feds. It was designed by them.
Yes.
They concocted it. They put it together. They organized it. And then they got these saps, these poor fucks, to go along with it. Much like the story of the 19-year-old kid. They gave him a fake bomb. They talked him in. They radicalized him, gave him a fake bomb, and talked this kid into using a cell phone to detonate the bomb that didn't work in the first place. And then once he did that, they swooped up and arrested him and said, we caught a terrorist. But you made him.
That's it. We've covered this.
Yeah.
They've been doing this for a long time.
Right, of course.
Since 9/11, they've been doing this at least, right?
Probably before that, if you go back to Operation Northwoods,
Oh, right.
it seems like they've been doing that since the 60s, right? Yeah.
People don't know that the CIA had drawn up plans. This is true. To blow up shit in Miami.
Blow up a drone jetliner.
Blow up a jetliner.
They were going to pull up a jet with no one in it. They were going to pretend there's people in it and then say, oh, well, in the 60s, you could just say a bunch of people died and there was no real way of knowing. They were going to arm Cuban friendlies and use them to attack Guantanamo Bay. And this was all to motivate people to go to war with Cuba.
Yeah. And why do they want to go to war with Cuba? Well, because you can't have a successful socialist country 90 miles away from the United States. You can't have a successful socialist country in Central America, South America, and that's why we've done everything we've done. You can't have it, and that's why we have to make, if there's a, in Venezuela, for instance, turns out Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. Did you know that?
What?
Yeah, Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. When I found that out, I knew it was just a matter of time before we were going to bring some democracy to their people. And that's what we're doing. We're going to try and bring that Juan Guaido, the whole thing. And so, again, is Maduro the greatest guy in the world? Doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. It's not up to me to decide.
Yeah.
And they have a socialist government, and they have pulled their government, their socialist government, pulled people out of poverty. And so we can't have that in the United States because we're run by capitalists. We have a completely captured government. It's a rapacious oligarchy. Why do you think when COVID happened, the first thing they did was they engineered an upward transfer of wealth of $5 trillion, the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history. That's how they fixed COVID. They didn't fix COVID. They just looted the treasury and gave it to the richest 1,000 motherfuckers in the country. But
they did it under the guise of keeping the economy rolling.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a good idea at the time.
No,
the thing that disturbed me.
It seemed like a good idea because the media wanted to present it as a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. I knew it wasn't a good idea.
But do you think the media was aware that it wasn't a good idea? Because
I think the media is such airheads. They just go, it's groupthink. I mean, if you've ever heard herd mentality, it's the United States establishment news media.
Right.
Not a fucking original thinker in any of them, which is why I can outdo them on a daily basis.
But the reason why you can is because you're independent.
Yes.
Because there's no one telling you what to say or not to say.
And I'm not self-censoring because I know my boss is watching me and I know what stories will get approved and what won't get approved. I just get to talk about whatever I want to talk about, which is why I'm able to outdo them, which is why I'm able to do better reporting on Syria than The Intercept and The Washington Post. I'm able to do better news information segments on Syria or on Venezuela.
Because you don't have a gatekeeper.
Because I don't have a gate, or Libya.
Right.
And a big part of my show is taking the news media's coverage of this stuff like Libya, Syria, Venezuela, and debunking it in real time.
But you are doing that. Doesn't that give you hope that you can do that? Because it gives me hope. Because there's people like you and Kyle and Crystal and Sagar and all these people are out there that are doing this kind of work, it does give me hope. It really does. Because I think even though there's a lot of suppression because there's a lot of influence from the establishment media, like one of the things that we know for sure, and Kyle's talked about this a lot, is that they're taking what used to be you would get recommended. So if I watched one of your videos, there would be more of your videos that would be recommended, but that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
The progressive talk shows, like everyone wants to say the censorship is on the right. Like they're censoring the right. They're censoring the left, too.
It's censoring everybody.
They're censoring everybody who's not established media.
Right.
Because established corporate media has enormous amounts of money behind them.
That's right.
And corporations behind them that are advertising on them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they don't, again, the establishment, people would go to YouTube to see YouTubers, people tubing by themselves. Now, when you go to YouTube for the news, they want to push you to corporate media because it's safer for their bottom line. And I get it. It's just basically bottom line. I get why they're doing that. And I don't think that's some nefarious conspiracy. It's very black and white why YouTube is censoring. And I get why they're doing that. But we have to push back. And that's why I think it should be it should be a utility.
I agree. It should be a utility. And I don't understand when people get upset at things being popular. Like there was a recent article on NPR about Ben Shapiro. And it was talking about how many views Ben Shapiro gets, and his Facebook page gets more interaction than anything else, and he's pushing hate. Like, no, he's pushing his perspective and his opinion. Ben Shapiro's not a hateful guy. And this, have you met him?
No, I have not.
He's a wonderful guy. I really enjoy him. I like him a lot. I don't agree with him on a lot of things. I don't agree with him on many, many things, and I've had disagreements with him on the podcast, particularly stuff like he's very religious, right? So he's very against gay marriage. He's very against gay relationships, and I think that's preposterous. I don't think that makes any sense. And we've had disagreements on that and a lot of other things, like the Colin Kaepernick thing, and there's many things that he and I have had disagreements about. But he's not a bad person. He just has ideas that I don't agree with, and this is the problem. It's like what you're supposed to do when someone has an idea that you don't agree with, you're supposed to talk to them, and you say what you think, and they say what they think, and hopefully, if it's some sort of a subject that I'm informed on, I can offer a perspective that's contrary to his, and it'll make sense. And then people listening go, oh, I agree with Ben. Oh, no, I think Joe's right. I think, and you figure out for yourself. That's what's supposed to be being a person, being a human being. This idea that there's one arbiter of truth, there's one absolute arbiter of truth, and it has to be this, whoever is the establishment media. And when it's something like NPR, it's even more weird because NPR is funded by people. Right? It's funded.
It's funded also by Archer Daniels Midland and Walmart and Bank of America. They're no longer public radio. That's the problem.
That's the problem. It's national public radio.
It sounds like it should be.
It should be public,
but it's not.
But it should be.
It should be.
Or you got to change your fucking name.
I know.
Right?
So when I used to have a show on KPFK in Los Angeles, the public. That's the real lefty station.
Right.
And I would come in to do fundraisers, and I would say, how many commercials for a bank do you get to run and still call yourself a public radio station? And I was taking a shot at KCRW and KPCC. So turns out there's an unlimited. I mean, every time I turn on NPR, they're running a Bank of America commercial or something like that. Yeah. Or the fine people at Raytheon, and so. The censorship's not stopping, Joe. In fact, what's happening is that the left is embracing it, and that's what's scary. There's nobody to push back against it. And when I come into this space, this journalism space, and I can do it better than them, they want me censored. That's why they write those hit pieces. Neera Tanden, who Bernie Sanders. Used to run the Center for American Progress, which is the big, well-moneyed think tank started by Hillary Clinton's former campaign director. So it's all big. And then Joe Biden tried to put her in his cabinet, right?
Right.
And so there was a big ruckus over that. And she's been on Twitter saying that I've been she came at me on Twitter trying to conflate me with that Steven Crowder, that Jimmy does these hateful videos. This is so funny. She owned herself in her tweet. She goes, Jimmy Dore has done many hateful videos about me. I don't watch them, but they can be horrible. I'm like, well, how do you know they're horrible if you don't watch them? How do you know that they're full of hate speech? Well, are you ignoring them while you're watching them? But that's someone who's got the air of the president. Right. The president in bed with Silicon Valley. Just now, the other day, Jen Psaki, the press secretary for the president, said if you're banned on one media platform, you should be banned on all of them. And so she wants to get me banned. So do you see what's happening?
Yeah.
The powerful people, I stick out like a sore thumb because I'm not co-opted by the Washington Post, the New York Times, or the Intercept, or MSNBC. I can speak my truth, and
Why do you think she's saying that? Do you think someone's telling her to say that?
No, she wants to get rid of me. I exposed her.
Does.
Yeah, because I exposed that she was for stealing the oil in Libya. Neera Tanden,
No, Jen Psaki.
Oh, Jen Psaki. What about her?
When she said that if you're banned from one media platform, you should be banned from all of them. Why do you think she's saying that?
Because they want to control the narrative. I mean, the established.
So is that do you think someone's saying, hey, this is what we want to push? That if you are banned from one social media platform, it would
seem to me that she didn't make that up on the fly, that was a policy that they've been thinking about. And so Chris Hedges talked about it on my show that they're just the establishment is just going to be using more crude and more cruder forms of control, like censorship. They're just doing it flat out now. And so that's all they have left. And they can't control people like you or can't control people like me. And so what are they going to do? Censor us. That's all they have left.
Right. Now, when we're talking about NPR, I don't, in all fairness, and I really want to be fair as much as possible.
Okay.
I don't think NPR was calling for the censorship of Ben Shapiro, were they? They were just
I don't know
saying
they're
that
lamenting the fact
that
that
it's a
someone else
problem.
is more popular than they are.
Yeah, well, that CNN's done that
Of
as well.
course.
CNN's done that about many, many shows.
And people
right?
don't see through that. I mean, there was a guy on CNN lamenting that there are some YouTube shows that get bigger audiences than a CNN show. Yeah. You know why? Because you guys suck.
Well, the problem with those shows is that these people have been chosen for their spot. They get on there with a suit and a tie and they say what's in front of them on the teleprompter, and I don't know how much editorial control they have over it, but at the end of the day, they're not there because they're popular, right? You are on your show because you've developed an audience over the years that people enjoy what you're doing or they like it, it resonates with them. They've tuned in, they've subscribed, they go and seek you out on a regular basis. They're not doing that with CNN. It's just on. It's on.
It's
so
on.
when Brian Stelter's talking, it's because he's on. And so you're watching. But when he's not on, when someone else is in his place, the ratings go up, which is crazy. When you got your own show and then you're not there and the ratings are better when you're not there. But see, this is the thing about when you are chosen to be on a slot in corporate news.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird thing that shouldn't... Look, it exists. Whatever it is, it exists. But the way independent shows have gathered up a following strictly by the merit of their content is a different thing. And this is a thing that I think people find they have a connection with you.
Yeah.
They know that if you're talking, you in particular, Jimmy, they know that if you're talking, this is what Jimmy Dore thinks about things. And there's no one whispering in your ear.
Right.
There's no one coming down on you and saying, hey, Jimmy, I don't like the way you were talking about Raytheon. Raytheon is a proud sponsor of the Fuck You Network, and we're not really interested in airing that segment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
But this is what people need to get this in their head. You want to know what someone's opinion is. You really do. We all do, because I'm not sure what mine are on things. I need to hear from educated people. I need to hear from informed people that are speaking truthfully about this is what I've learned, this is my perspective, this is what I think. Based on the facts at hand, and I'm going to show you what those facts are, this is my perspective on these things. When you do that, people go, I see how you came to that conclusion. But when you're on a network, whether it's Fox News or whatever, and you're speaking and people know that you are reading off of a teleprompter, you have a team of writers, all the words are approved, you have a narrative that you're pushing, and this narrative is essentially guided by the network. The people don't resonate with that. It doesn't stick. It doesn't work. It's a version of what we're talking about with late night television.
Yes.
It's a version of it. It's the same kind of thing. It doesn't resonate.
So what all you have is, I think, in the space that I'm in as a YouTuber, and I think you too, Joe, is your authenticity. If people can trust you, if they think that, right or wrong, if they agree with you or disagree with you, they know you're being sincere.
And if you're wrong about something, it's also your job to correct it.
Right.
And say, well, I fucked that up.
Right.
I didn't know, or here's what I know now, and don't be married to your ideas. This is what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And once you blow that, you're like, I have my people. I have a broad appeal, like from both left and the right. Right. I have a lot of people who watch my show on the right say, I disagree with Jimmy on most things, but I appreciate that he's telling the truth. And they like that. They like that I'm going to tell the truth. And I've had lots of people say that I've changed their mind. They go, I've started watching Jimmy, and since then I've changed on single payer, but I still disagree with him on cops and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And that's used to be the gold standard for a left. You know, when I go on Tucker Carlson, I take heat for it every time I do. People, but Tucker Carlson admitted, one of the last time I was on his show, we were talking about Julian Assange, and he said, it was through the force of your argument that you changed my mind on Julian Assange. Now, that should be a considered a huge victory for the progressive left, right? Because you got the guy who's got the #1 news show speaking to half the country, and I changed his mind on an issue. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to use speech, talk to each other, and so we can change people's hearts and minds. That's what you're supposed to do. So when you see somebody who's a right-winger, I had a union guy on my show, and I go, what's your message for these guys? And they go, I don't have a message. I go, well, that's not how organizing works, fuckface. That's not how it works. I've been in unions my whole life. You don't go to the shop floor and go, who's here a Proud Boy? You're out. Who here is a Boogaloo Boy? You're out. Who's a Libertarian? You're out. Who's a gun nut? You're out. Who's a Trumper? You're out. Okay, who's left? We're going to organize against the man. That's not how fucking organizing works. And when people say, which they love to say, and they don't know what they're saying, they go, oh, we have to organize along class lines. Oh, really? No. You really mean that? Because they don't fucking mean that. What does it mean when they say organize along class? That not just the working class on half the country. When you say organize along working class lines, that means everybody. That means Trumpers. And when I'm out there pushing for Medicare for all, that's Medicare for all.
Right.
That's Medicare for right-wingers, Trumpers, libertarians, and people on the left. That's everybody. And so, and guess who wants? Everybody wants to end the wars. We can come together on those things. We can come together on single-payer health care. We can come together on police brutality. We can come together on pot legalization and all kinds of shit we can come together on. $15 minimum wage people agree on. All the shit that we agree on that the establishment doesn't, and they don't want us talking to each other. I had a Boogaloo Boy on my show. I just interviewed him.
I remember that.
All I did was I started off the interview by saying, I don't know anything about the Boogaloo Boys. I am not endorsing a Boogaloo Boy. I don't know anything about it. But I saw this guy give a speech at the state capitol in Michigan, and I want to have him on to pick his brain. And so I brought him on, and I interviewed him. And it turned out that the certain fractions of the Boogaloo Boys that he belongs to, they were started because they were a reaction to the Proud Boys, and they were anti-racist. And one of the things that you have to be in a Boogaloo Boy was you couldn't be racist. That I didn't know that. He also said he was providing security for the Black Lives Matter protesters. That's been documented. They did that. He's also pro-LGBTQ. I was
what do they stand for?
I thought you guys are fucking nuts. So, but he's a gun guy. He loves guns.
They wear Hawaiian shirts.
They wear Hawaiian shirts, and they love guns. But
you can't wear Hawaiian shirts anymore because people think you're a Boogaloo Boy.
Right, they think you're a Boogaloo. So, but the Boogaloo Boys were anti-Trump, anti-cop, police brutality, anti-imperialism, anti-war, pro-LGBT, and that's what that guy told me. Now, there's no coalition, there's no central, but so the faction that he was in was a part. And so I reached out to that guy, right? And I had the next guy came out. He goes, "What do you do in platforming that guy?" I go, I interviewed somebody." I go, "What's your message to that guy?" I go, "That guy's being crushed by capitalism right now because the COVID lockdown. He didn't have a job. He didn't know what to do." And I go, "That guy, you got to have a message for that guy." And he goes, "I don't have a message for that guy." I go, "Well, that's why nobody ever fucking heard of you." Well, and you're a shitty organizer.
The problem with any kind of organization that anybody could join, whether it's the Boogaloo Boys or anybody, you could start off good. You could start off with a good intention, and then you'll get co-opted by the government. Someone will come in, and they'll have fake
infiltrators.
People. Yeah, they'll have
That's
infiltrators.
Right. And have you do all
agent
kinds of
provocateurs. They'll come in, and they'll pretend they're a part of your organization, and they'll start lighting buildings on fire, and smashing windows.
Yes,
and that's what they do.
That documented that happened a lot last summer.
But that's a problem with any organization that's not an official.
That's right.
Government-run organization is if anybody could join it, that means the federal government can join it. Yeah, but anybody can.
But the sin I committed, Joe, was I
platformed.
I talked to somebody on the right, and that's what the establishment fears. If the populist left and the populist right come together, they're fucked, and that's what they have to stop. That's why they're so after me when I did that. Newsweek wrote a hit piece, BuzzFeed, New York Magazine. I mean, they went nuts coming at me. I trended on Twitter for like 3 days, 2 weeks in a row.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. My parents are very proud. And I was trending yesterday on Twitter because I gave a speech at the Medicare for All marches that happened on Saturday. And I said we have to make the squad uncomfortable. We have to make Bernie Sanders uncomfortable because those are the people we have the most influence on. I don't have any influence on Rand Paul or Mitch McConnell. I didn't help get them elected. They don't listen to me ever. And Lawrence O'Donnell said the only way you're ever going to get, and this is a famous quote of his, the only way you're going to get the Democratic Party to listen to you or move to your side, to the left, is you have to be willing to show that you're not going to vote for them. And that is not what the Democrats are willing, or the people on the left are. They're always going to vote for the lesser of two evil. So the lesser of two evils is always going to keep being shitty. And so that's why Joe Biden can govern like a right-winger, because he is a right-winger. He's a conservative right-winger, Joe Biden. I mean, and just think about this, about the military spending. So when Trump was president, they said Trump was a traitor and he was working for Putin and you can't trust him. Then why did you give him an extra $132 billion to do war? Because that's what they did. During his 4 years of presidency, they ramped up the military budget $132 billion. And there was no town halls about it. There was no meetings. There was no big discussions about it. They just did it. You know, you could end homelessness for $20 billion. They could do that every year. They don't want to. But so it just goes to show you how captured our government is.
Wait a minute. How could you do that? Isn't LA's homeless budget like $2 billion?
I don't know how they spending that money, what they're doing.
Yeah.
California is run by Democrats, supermajority Democrats, and a Democratic governor. And there's people sleeping under every bridge, and no one gives a shit.
Well, I had Colion Noir on the podcast,
Who's that?
and he's a Second Amendment advocate. He's a lawyer, and he's a very interesting and intelligent guy. And one of the things that he pointed out was that it was pointed out to him that there's no incentive to really end homelessness because there's a shit ton of people that are working to end homelessness, and they're making six figures. And he put up the numbers. He put
really?
up the income of all the different people that are working in California, and some of them were $250,000 a year.
Amazing.
And there's no progress made. And every year the budget goes up.
Yeah.
We were watching it, and the revelation hit me. I was like, holy shit. He's like, they're banking. He goes, they're farming homeless people. And I was like, this is insanity. He goes, like, it doesn't get any better. If it doesn't get any better and they keep spending more money every year, he goes, don't you think there's a problem?
So don't you think Medicare for All, I think, would help the homelessness problem because people are driven into bankruptcy every year?
Yes.
And even people with, you know that 44% of homeless people have jobs?
Really?
Yeah. So the working poor. And they working in the richest country. What I try to tell people, 80% of workers in America lived paycheck to paycheck before COVID. Half of all wage earners earn less than $30,000 in a year in America. 50% of Americans couldn't afford a $400 emergency. So I say, what do you call a system that takes the richest country on the face of the earth and renders half of its population poor or low income? You call that a goddamn failed system. And no one's talking about the failed system. All they're doing is trying to nip around the edges. And they're not even doing that anymore. We can't even get a $15 minimum wage. We can't even get a public option. We ain't getting shit. But they are ramping up the drug war and putting more people in prison. And right now, they passed a law in California that said you can't use private prisons for immigrants, right? For Joe Biden is in court trying to overturn that. That's Joe Biden, not Trump. Joe Biden. You know, Trump allowed them to discriminate against the LGBTQ if you were a religious school. Joe Biden is now upholding that. So again, this idea that Joe Biden is somehow better than anybody is a fault. He is the moral superior to no one. The guy is a war criminal. How about that?
So now when you go back to the homeless situation, so clearly COVID was just a giant monkey wrench into the gears of life for everybody in this country. For the past year and a half plus, everything's gone sideways. It's all fucked, right? When you say that 40% of these people that are homeless have jobs, how many are mentally ill? How many of them are drug addicts? How many of them are criminals? How many of them have some sort of a horrible history where they can't get hired anywhere? And how do you ever resolve that? Like, how does anyone, if you're dealing with somewhere like California, like I don't know what Los Angeles' homeless population is now, but someone estimated it was somewhere around 100,000, which is literally Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
So you have the population of Boulder in LA, and they're all in tents. Mm-hmm. And so if you have, like, how would anybody resolve that? When you take into account how many of them are criminals, how many of them have horrible records where nobody wants to hire them, how many of them are mentally ill, how many of them are drug addicts, drug addicts?
So again, like I said, the stats are I think somewhere around 40% of them actually have jobs. So the rest of them, if they're mentally ill or drug addicts, you know what that is, that you'd have to have a healthcare program to take care of those people like they do in other countries.
Right, you would have.
Right. So
that was the problem in the Reagan administration. They changed the standards for people to be in mental institutions, and they cast those people out in the street, and that's when we saw a giant uptick in homeless. I remember that.
That'd be your first thing. I would give people mental health.
Right. So you'd have to do something to ramp up the mental health programs,
Right.
ramp up institutions. But
Yes.
do you institutionalize these people against their will? Like, how much freedom do you give them? You know what I'm saying?
Right. I hear you.
Because this is one of the things that I've talked to people that work with homeless. They say when you have these situations where you have these shelters, but you have to be clean in the shelter, these people, well, fuck that. I'll just go live in a tent.
Right.
And I'll get free food. I can come back and get free food. I
Right.
don't want to live under your laws and your rules. I want to do drugs. And
Right.
so they do their drugs. They're addicted to their
Right.
drugs, and they don't want to be clean.
Right.
How could one resolve that?
So that's I mean, there is a big. I mean, I don't know what percentage of homeless people are drug addicts. I would have to look that up. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how they would estimate that. But I mean, drug addiction is a problem. Alcoholism's a problem in America. Drug addiction's a problem. And what you do is you don't make people get clean before you give them a home.
Right.
You get people homes, and then
Right.
that helps them get clean. How can you if I was living on the street, I would be doing every drug in the world. I can't
Right.
believe. I mean,
Just to
I do
escape.
drugs now, and I have a house.
Right. Yeah, just to escape reality, the pressures of
Yeah.
reality, and just the horrors of your existence.
So this idea that we
Right.
can't handle this problem is also bullshit. I mean, if you give people so let's play. So 40% of the people already working. So what you do is you give them enough money to get a fucking house because they're not earning enough. And so maybe you pass a $15 minimum wage, and that helps them get there. Also, the people who are mentally ill, you get them mental health, and the people who have regular health problems, they went bankrupt. You also get them their health care so they don't go bankrupt anymore. And then the people who are left over, who are unemployable because of their history or something, the government should give them a job.
Let's start with step one. Let's start with the housing, right? How does that work? Like, if you want to create affordable housing for people, but you have this competitive real estate market, like we were talking earlier about how expensive houses
It's
are.
nuts how expensive it is in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Shitty houses cost $1 million.
Yeah.
In my old neighborhood in Pasadena, a regular house, 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, they're now going for $1 million.
Yeah.
And it's not a nice neighborhood. It's just a regular neighborhood.
Right.
And I'm like, how do these? So because
it's loans, and you're basically 30 years, you're paying it off, and you know, and we saw what happened in 2008 with all that shit, the subprime mortgage.
And
crisis.
and now they're doing that thing where the hedge funds or the equity companies, which got bailed out during the COVID upward transfer of wealth, are now buying up all the houses and renting them out so to keep people paupers. Because the only way to really create wealth in America anymore is now through real estate. And so if you can't get real estate, you're going to be a pauper forever. So you've heard about those stories, right? Where there's the big equity firm that bought, in fact, one whole city, I think in Texas somewhere, and then you have to go rent from them forever.
I have heard that nationwide, that there's this trend of like giant corporations buying houses, and that you have to, like, if you see a house for sale, you got to jump on it quick because there's
They'll come in and they'll overbid.
What is that? What's happening there?
So, as far as I can tell, what's happening there is they're cornering the market and they're creating monopolies and they're artificially raising the prices so then they can have you as a renter forever. And
so they're buying these houses and then they won't sell them. They're just using them as rental properties, and that they'll control the ownership of these houses.
Yeah.
And this is a new thing?
This seems like it's a new thing.
Seems like it's a
the
new
article
thing.
I read.
Yeah, I read it too, but I just glanced at it,
and
I got depressed, and I put the fucking phone down. I was like, Jesus Christ!
I had this, the shit they do with for rich people, money's free, right? Because you go get zero interest, all that's like all the money that they gave out to the banks and stuff. It's just they were going to give them $1 trillion a day. The Fed they'll give them $1 trillion a day. So this idea that we can't solve our problems, you travel to other countries, they've solved their problems, right?
Yeah.
I was in Norway, no homeless people.
But it seems like they've been on top of it from the jump. They never let it get to a point where you've got 100,000 people in Los Angeles that are homeless. That's where it becomes a problem, when it gets so bad. Like, I was talking to the mayor of Austin, and we were describing the homeless situation here, and he's like, you got to get a hold of it now. He goes, because if it gets worse, it's going to get to a point where if you look at Los Angeles, it's essentially unfixable. And he was describing, like, we don't have the resources to fix something like that. But Austin's homeless situation is somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people. He's like, that's fixable is if we act now. If you act now and start providing shelter. And so they're doing these things. They're trying. And a lot of people don't think they're trying fast enough. And they've instituted this tent ban. And some people are against it. And some people are celebrating it. And it's a very divisive thing in the city. Yeah. Because this is a weird city, right? It's a progressive city that's in this red state. And there's a lot of conflicts about how to handle these situations. But the mayor Steve Adler had a great point. He's like, you could get a hold of it now, and you could stop. And he goes, and that is my one goal in the year and a half that I have left in office, is to get a hold of this and start making some progress and to lay the foundation for if he leaves office and the next mayor comes in, they have a plan. There's something they can follow.
I hope. I mean, that sounds like
But this is, again, 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Yeah,
Los Angeles is fucking out of control. I've seen, like, my friend Bridget Fettis, sent me a video. She took of her car driving down Venice and just filming the number of tents. And if you're a person whose job was to handle that, you'd be like, well, the diffusion of responsibility is so high because the problem is so overwhelming. Like, what do you do? What do you do? Maybe they're not really farming homeless people. Maybe you can't fucking fix it. Maybe there's not enough money. Maybe you'd need fucking trillions of dollars to fix that because it's so overwhelming. It's so big.
I think if you instituted Medicare for all and a living wage, you get rid of a lot of those problems.
You definitely put a dent in it, right?
And if you had a government jobs program, like why isn't there? Hey, if you're healthy and you're willing to work, why doesn't the government just give you a job to go do shit?
Because you can get more money. There's a lot of people that feel like you can to not work, right? And
yeah, but
just
you make
live.
But you make it more. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, a lot of people are saying that, the unemployment, people don't want to go work because they're getting unemployment. Do you realize how shitty their job is when they would rather fucking stay home? Because nobody wants to do that. People would love to. Most people want to work. And
that's not necessarily true, though. I have a friend who owns a restaurant. He was talking to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he has a very nice restaurant. It's a small place,
Mm-hmm.
and he can't get people to work.
Yeah, your friend's a piece of shit.
He's
Shut up.
not. There's no way. He's not at all. He's not. He's a real good guy.
No, I'm kidding.
And
No,
he runs a small business, and he's like, I gave these people money when they left.
Mm-hmm.
We made sure they were taken care of. And he goes, and during the pandemic, and then when the pandemic was over, we talked about it on this podcast. And he was like, come on back to work. And they're like, no, I'm getting free money. Like, why would I come back to work?
So, in other countries, when COVID happened, when they quarantined them, what they did is if you had to shut your business down, the government paid your employees. The government paid them. In Japan, it was like 100%, and in Europe, it ranged from 70 to 100% of people's salary. They didn't do that in the United States. I don't know how anybody got through this.
I don't know.
They
how
got
through it either.
one $1,600, $1,400 check, and
it made people dangerous and desperate. There's a lot of people because you're stuck in a situation where you got no money coming in, you got family.
What are you supposed to do?
Right. But people are like, why did crime go up? Well, it's complicated. Well, maybe it's complicated, but there's also a real clear motivating factor, desperation.
Yes. It even happened in Sicily. People were going into the grocery stores and not paying and just leaving. That started to happen when COVID lockdown started happening. Yeah. And so they sent out the police to stop. Of course, they had to stop that and all that shit. But what's weird too, Joe, is like when COVID lockdowns happened, we all saw how important the essential workers are, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't live without the essential workers, right?
I fucking hate that term. I really do. I hate that term essential worker. It drives me crazy because it makes people think that their job's not essential. So the people that are not amongst the essential workers, they're non-essential? Like, what the fuck does that mean? There's a bunch of pieces that need to be put into place to make society work. I just hate that term.
Frontline workers, maybe?
Yes.
Call them frontline workers.
Well, for sure. Hospital workers. I mean, and even people that work in supermarkets, right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. And for sure, firemen, police officers, teachers, things along those lines.
Frontline.
Yeah.
So they have all the power. Like it was revealed through this crisis that they have all the power. I couldn't get anything from else. I had to schedule an appointment 3 days ahead to get my delivery. So just even with like the workers at UPS and the workers at Amazon, and they realize that they're isn't it crazy that Jeff Bezos is able to like become a trillionaire during this crazy lockdown time?
Is he a trillionaire now?
He's getting close.
What's he at now?
I don't know. It's up there.
Funny. It's like a score. Like we're looking at like sports scores. Like how many years can the Patriots win?
And
it is. It's kind of crazy. It's like we're looking at numbers.
Isn't it crazy how much I could hate Tom Brady and then I could root for him just like that?
Did you see that video of him throwing the ball into that little tiny hole and have it spit back out at him?
No.
Oh my God! Go to his Instagram.
That's not real.
Oh, it's not real?
It's not real?
Chuck, you can't do that.
What do you mean you can't do that?
You can't do that.
How do you know?
He's been making viral videos like that for a while, and some of them are like computer CGI stuff. Like he threw a ball to the sun or something.
Wait a minute.
Like
No. But that looks very doable.
He's been trying to take over the internet with viral videos.
No
But
kidding.
hold on a second. Do you know for a fact that's not real?
Okay, you could do it once. He did it 3 times in a row. And the
I've
third
heard-
time it fell over and it spit back at him.
Yeah, but
okay.
I've heard that,
me
literally
see it.
from people that know him, that his accuracy is unprecedented. When you think about how successful he is as a quarterback,
I know. I'm not trying to
Let's watch
shame
it.
Tom Brady, the GOAT. But
sounds like you are. Let's
well,
watch it.
It's not real.
But I don't know if you know that for a fact, though. You're saying it like you know it for a fact. Let's watch it. Let's watch it. Watch this. Bro, that looks real as fuck.
It looks real because it's done by a really good computer.
Maybe.
With really good
I don't know,
effects.
man.
And then the third time in a
Really?
row, he steps back and does it again, and it falls over. Oh, like a sad robot.
But how do you know that's the case? How do you know that's not actually him doing that 3 times in a row?
Okay.
You don't.
You're right. I don't know.
So shut the fuck up. What are you doing over there, Jamie? Someone's a hater. I mean, that
that's not
seems,
re-
but it's from a short distance, dude. This is not that far. For a guy that's as accurate as Tom Brady, literally the
says
GOAT.
He's put out weird
History.
video like this once a week for the last 2 years, I don't know, a long time.
Right, but the other ones, if he's throwing a ball to the sun, you're going, okay. But this is very doable. It's humanly possible to do it once, right?
People can hit holes in one too, but
Yeah.
they don't do it all the
Yeah,
time.
but it's way harder to hit a hole in one than it is for a guy that's literally the greatest quarterback of all time to throw a ball 15 yards into a small pocket like that.
That's a machine that's spitting back out. It's not made to catch balls. It's a machine made to throw balls. So then they're saying that he's throwing it so fast it's taking it. That's the double
They're saying
thing.
he's throwing it so fast.
Like that's
he's
a
taking
machine
it?
that spits balls out. It's not
Right.
a catching machine. So it's got 2 wheels that are spinning at a very high velocity. So the
Uh-huh.
idea is that
He's shoving it in there.
He's throwing it so fast the machine caught it
and no
then
one
spit
does
it
that?
back out.
You can't do that?
I would love to find another video where that's actually happening, and
Okay,
then
well,
3 times in a row.
you can
I'll look,
you
but I'm
can
just
search
telling.
that
I'm just
video.
telling you without going too deep again.
So you think
If
he's
Tom Brady's ever on this show, he's going to smack you in the
I
face.
would love to, Michigan. Let's go. Let's go.
I don't know. I don't know jack shit about football. I'm the wrong guy.
That's
so
the
maybe
only
you're
reason
right.
I'm saying.
Maybe you think he's the greatest quarterback of all time?
Yes.
I think he's very likely the greatest quarterback of all time just based on what he's accomplished. I don't know, though. I don't know jack shit about football. I'm not the guy.
Okay.
You know?
I would go Doug Flutie.
Well,
No, it is amazing to me, and I still can't get over it every time I think about it. How I rooted for him in the Super Bowl, and how I could not believe it because it was just because he was so old and they discarded him.
how old is he now? Like
He's
43?
45?
45?
I don't know. I don't know
Is
how
he
old
really
he is.
that old? Well, he's obviously healthy as fuck.
And how do you not root for that guy? What does this say?
What does it say?
Brady tagged a videographer
On
Oh, CGI.
Instagram.
who's known for doing CGI videos.
Clip and credit himself as a director and responsible for the visual. Oh, so it's fake.
so
God
it's
damn it,
fake.
you're right.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So good catch.
Sorry I called you a piece of shit.
So, I wouldn't have interrupted if I didn't have a strong feeling.
Well, you were accurate. You're correct, sir. Yeah. Well, that sucks, Tom. I thought you were just that good.
I thought he was that
He's
good
trying
too.
to win the internet, bro.
Well, he won.
He won.
Got us talking about it. But now you just fucking pissed all over his fire.
Not everybody knows, apparently. Sorry.
A lot of people are going to know now.
So it turns out it wasn't Bill Belichick's genius. It turns out it was Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well,
Turns out Bill Belichick
is
would
he
just-
45? Is that how old he
He's
is?
43.
That's insane. For a sport like football, where giant super athletes are running at you full clip.
He's 43. He turned
God.
44 in
How
a
does
couple
he-
days.
Oh, he's going to be 44 in a couple days. Look at that.
How is he still at the top of his game?
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Because the average career for a professional football player, what is it, like 4 years?
It's very short. I mean, it gets smashed into it. When I watch football, all I see is CTE. All I see is like collisions. I'm like, God. And I'm a fight commentator.
So how do fighters not get that CTE?
They do.
Oh.
Yeah, they definitely do. Guys who have long careers, for sure, get some CTE. You know, the ones who are the most defensively responsible, who fight the smartest, they get little of it, or less of it, I should say, than the ones who are like face-forward brawlers. But The
Like Bernard
brawl-
Hopkins, who was a boxer, and he
Yeah.
boxed till he was in his late 40s, maybe even 50.
in his 50s. Yeah.
So he was very defensive, so maybe he doesn't suffer from that.
No, you hear Bernard talk, he sounds perfect.
Okay.
You know, as Marvin Hagler did before he died. Marvin Hagler sounded perfect.
He
didn't
died?
He died, yeah.
I missed that. When
Yeah.
did he die?
During the pandemic.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's too bad. He was great.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
he definitely died.
Oh,
And
okay.
he was one of my all-time favorite boxers. I'm a giant Marvin Hagler
Yeah.
fan. I grew up in,
Yeah,
lived
that's
in Boston.
my.
He was amazing.
But that era was a great era for
Have you
boxing.
seen that new Showtime special, The Kings?
No.
It's incredible. It's a 4-part series. It's about Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. It's incredible.
I mean,
It's incredible. It gives you goosebumps.
yeah, I'll watch it now.
It's
because
so good. It's so good.
How excited! I remember I was the age. I was
Yeah.
watching those guys. I remember Sugar Ray Leonard. I remember the Olympics and all that stuff. What was it? The '76 Olympics? Which one is it? Which,
Yeah, Sugar Ray was 76. Yeah.
And he was doing
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
he
it's
did all that
incredible.
stuff. It was doing the
Yeah.
fast hands
and
and
the
it was,
fight with Roberto Duran. He fought Roberto Duran's
No
kind
mas.
of fight, and the first fight Duran won. And the second fight, he caught Duran fat, made him lose a lot of weight, and then Duran quit in the middle of the fight and it
Yeah.
just destroyed him. And they document this in the Showtime. The Showtime series is excellent.
how does Duran quit that fight? I mean, why don't just
He
go out?
talked about it.
Just
He
go out,
talked
take a
about
punch, and fall down.
And
That is so
I
right.
don't know. I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Just
I mean,
go
he said he was-
take a body shot and go down. He got me. Why do you got to not answer the bell? That just
No, he
seemed.
stopped in the middle of the round.
And he went no
He
mas.
just stopped.
Right.
No
yeah,
mas.
Yeah.
He just waved it off. He said he was having cramps. I think it's a lot of factors, a lot of things. A lot of things happen
Okay.
there. And they document it and they talk about it, and Duran talked about it. And then when he came back and had some fights afterwards and fought like shit and lost to some guys that you didn't think he was going to lose to, and then eventually wound up beating Davey Moore and winning the junior middleweight title, I believe that it was. And, that was his big comeback that he came back, and that was a few years later after No Mas. I remember that, too. It was like, because I was a giant Duran fan as
okay.
well, and it's like, finally he's back. Because he was just a pariah. Like, he couldn't go back to Panama. When he went to Panama, if he wanted to walk down the street, he had to walk with a lion. He had a pet lion. And a lion
Because
on a
people were
chain.
mad
Because
at
people
him?
were fucking with him. So the way he would keep people from fucking with him, he would walk down the street with a lion.
No. That's
Yeah, people
crazy.
were furious at him because they loved him so much, and then for him to bring that kind of embarrassment to Panama was it was just a giant moment in the country's history.
Yeah, there's just there's just another way to quit
Yeah.
that fight. There's a way
Yeah.
to quit that fight
Yeah,
and
I
save your
mean,
reputation.
Now to look back in hindsight, I'm sure he would do it differently, but at the moment, he talks about it. You should watch it because if you're a big fan, you should watch it. 'cause
I will. I'll
It's
definitely
one of
check
the
it out.
best documentaries on boxing. It's a 4-piece documentary. It's one of the best I've ever seen. It's amazing.
I watch almost nothing anymore.
Really?
I don't watch stuff. I don't. Ever since my cable guy had my floors redone and they undid my cable, I just never rehooked it, and so I don't really watch TV and shit. I watch YouTube, and I watch mindless shit like car crashes. I just love watching car crashes. I'm watching boat crashes. There's this guy.
Yeah.
There's the inlet in Florida where the waves knock all the boats over. I just watch it forever, and I like watching people fly out of the boats. And and then boats that smash into other boats. I just keep watching it. I can't stop watching it. I'm like, fuck, I've been doing this for an hour.
Mindless entertainment like that it's very intoxicating, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I do too. I was watching this video. Oh, here's one, Jamie. I wanted to bring this up to you. There was a guy who made a video, and I don't know if it's real, but he had the boat going, and he tried wakeboarding behind the boat and fell, and so he was by himself. And so he did something to the accelerator. He pushed the accelerator forward. When you have a boat, you don't have to hold the gas down. You just push it forward. So he pushed it forward and then went back and was going to show you how he could wakeboard behind his boat. And he fell. And the boat just took off on its own.
What did he think was going to happen?
He thought he was going to be the slick guy on the internet who wakeboards and manages to get back on the boat.
Did they
and look
ever
like a
find the
hero.
boat?
I don't know.
It's probably real. There's quite a few videos of people doing exactly what you're saying and not falling. So,
But if that guy did that, where's the boat? Did it kill somebody? Where, is it lying in someone's living room? Does it keep going till it hits a tree? What the fuck happened to the boat?
We find it, I guess.
Did he do it on the ocean? If it's an
It
ocean,
looks like a lake. It looks like he's doing it on a lake, and he's wakeboarding behind the boat. It was on someone's page that I saw. Fuck, who was it? I can't remember.
Okay.
I watch too much shit. I follow like 15,000 fucking people or something.
I think I found it, but it's actually old.
Oh, is it?
Let me see.
Let me
Does
see.
this look like the screenshots from it?
No,
Okay.
that's not it.
Okay.
No, it's like the guy's holding like a GoPro in his hand, and he gets off, and he's on the boat doing the whole thing.
I mean, they're calling it ghost riding the boat. There's lots of videos of that. Which, like,
That's
ghost
so
riding the whip, but
stupid.
that sounds
That
even
is that.
dumber.
God damn
That's
it.
the thing about like wanting attention online. It is made the world such a strange place. This desire just for attention and to do wild shit that gets people to watch you, and parkour and that kind of shit.
It sounded like you said park whore.
Park
She's the whore at the park.
whore. She's a park whore. I'm in favor of park prostitutes.
Yeah.
No, there's one on
Work is work.
one insane one on Robin Black's page where this guy leaps and does like he jumps through the air, lands like with his feet on this wall, and does a backflip down into this huge gap in between like this stone wall and a staircase. And you're just like, what the fuck did you just do? And how did you prepare? Have you seen
That's
that?
Dumb Tomato. Yeah. I followed
Yeah.
this guy for
Watch
a while.
this.
I've talked to him a few times. He's,
Watch this.
Crazy.
That's insane.
Wow.
Some of the other shit he does, which is different than
What is
that.
his name? Dom Tomato.
Dom
Dom
Tomato.
Tomato, you are a bad motherfucker. These guys freak me the fuck out. These parkour guys, because they're basically defying reality.
He posts when he falls a lot too. Which I haven't ever seen him get wrecked really bad. It looks like he's gotten really fucked up a few times, and he just pops right back. He's like, "Holy shit, got lucky there." And
So
it's
he
like,
tried to land there and catch the wall, but he didn't quite catch it. Oh, Jesus Christ. What is he landing
What
on?
did he land on?
He had a little pad there. He'll do these things where he'll jump into the water. He'll land on the tiniest little thing to pop his feet onto something.
Oh, my God.
I've followed him for close to 2 to 3 years now, I think. So I've seen lots of videos of.
These guys are so crazy.
Little patent scaffolding.
This is the thing. Like, here, we're giving them attention. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
thing. Like, this is what they do, right? They do. But that one, the one in the middle, scroll up, that one that we were looking at,
This one.
that one's insane. I mean, watch how he jumps through the air and lands with both feet on the wall and then flips.
That is crazy.
Fucking nuts. I mean,
Do you see the one where the kid puts the bucket on people's heads in grocery stores or whatever?
no.
So like he's this little wiry kid, and he'll go up to like a big guy and put a bucket over his head and run away, like go around the corner, and he'll take off his jacket and then he'll walk by like it's nothing, Like, now I don't know how many of those are real,
Right.
because he's picking with some big guys, and so I don't know if those are real or not.
One
but
of the
they're
things
funny.
that's really disturbing is all the videos that are coming out of the muggings in New York City, or the security camera muggings. There was one that came out yesterday from Brooklyn, Queens. This guy just got the fuck beaten out of him. Some guy just runs up on this guy, just beats the shit out of him, knocks him unconscious, drops him on the ground, literally picks him up, drops him on his head, and then just starts stealing his money, takes everything out of his pockets. And you've seen so many of these attack videos, and they're, the uptick in violent crime. This is it, yeah. He stomps on this guy, now takes all his shit, and watch how he picks him up, just drops him on his head. See that? Like, that could kill him. Just that alone. I mean, just walked up on this guy, 68-year-old man hospitalized. 68-year-old guy getting kicked in the head.
Wow.
And there's a lot of this going on.
Wow.
And it's
horrible.
horrible to watch. And this defund the police shit has caused this violent uptick in crime. I mean, and COVID and police brutality.
Well, they didn't actually
and,
defund the police.
Well, what did they do in New York City where the
Did
cops
they?
don't have as much money? Yeah, they did, by $1 billion. What is the amount of money that they defunded the police by? Well, and there's not just that. It's like cops are scared to do active police work. They're scared to go out there and do things.
I don't really.
Yeah, did you see that guy that got the fuck beaten out of him in the park with his dog? A guy walking with his dog, and this group of teenagers just jumps this guy. Now, I don't know what he said to them or what they said to him or what happened, but it's one guy walking with his dog, and a group of teenagers beat the fuck out of him. And it's a very disturbing video because there's like I don't know how many kids. It looks like there's like 20 kids.
Wow.
And they just beat the shit out of this guy in a park.
So I thought the term defund police was unfortunate because that's not what it really meant. I thought what it meant was, hey, instead of when there's a person with a mental health problem, instead of sending a cop, maybe we could send somebody who's a mental health person to help that person instead of or like that's
what if that person is acting violently and it's a mental health issue and the person has a weapon?
What are they doing? I mean, I guess you would handle it different. Again, maybe if they have a weapon, I don't know, but it seems like cops are doing too many things that they don't have to do.
I see what you're saying. I think it's more that cops have an insanely difficult job when they're not appreciated, and there's bad cops. And when you see bad cops do things, then it justifies this idea of defunding the police. But when you're being attacked or when something's happening or someone's breaking into your house or you're in danger, you want cops. You want to be able to call someone.
Yes.
So this whole defund the police thing, the problem is then they're not available for that. That's the problem. I thought it was actually the opposite, that they would be more available to come help you, like because they wouldn't be taking care of all this bullshit. No, they feel underappreciated. Not only that, they feel like they're in danger. They feel like they're going to go viral, and they're going to be, people are going to hate them and show up at their house. It's scary shit to be a cop right now. Maybe there's some good in that, and that bad cops get filtered out and police brutality diminishes to a certain extent. But I think what they need to be is trained. They need to be more appreciated, and they need to have better qualified people as police officers, people that can handle pressure, and then you got to think about how many cops have massive PTSD. You ever talk to cops about I've talked to a lot of cops and the shit they experience on a daily basis.
My grandpa was a cop. My dad was a cop. My oldest brother was a cop.
Yeah, so
all my best friends are cops in Chicago.
The shit they see.
And, they're all assholes. And so what's wrong with policing is the system that we use. What's wrong? It's not bad apples, right? It's because what actually happens is there's a culture of policing, and it's the way they're trained. They're not trained to de-escalate. They've been trained to escalate. And you've heard people, even Barack Obama, I heard say, "A cop's number one job is to make sure he comes home safe at night." That is not a cop's job. The cop's number one job is to make sure I come home safe at night. That's why he's supposed to risk his life, and he gets a monopoly on violence, and he gets to carry a gun, and gets to be able to order people around because he's supposed to be protecting me. But the way they're thinking now is I have to protect myself, and everybody is a potential killer.
Well, because they get shot when they pull people over for random traffic stops.
It's just statistically not a dangerous job, a policeman. Statistically, it's not dangerous.
What does that mean, though? That's a crazy thing to say when you see videos of cops getting shot left and right. It's a very dangerous job.
I mean, you could
statistically, working at a grocery store is not a dangerous job. Now it is, though, right? Because of COVID, then all of a sudden a lot of people who are of poor health who are working at grocery stores, it used to be no big deal. Then they'd get COVID and get really sick and be fucked, right? It became a dangerous job.
Right.
But statistically, being a police officer means you're pulling people over and they might shoot you. That's a very dangerous job.
Well, that's not statistically. I mean, that's a possibility, but the statistics show that it's not that dangerous of a job. If you could Google what's the most dangerous jobs in America, I bet a cop would be like 18th.
Well, let's find out.
Let's find out.
That's interesting.
I mean, I think the number one is going to be fisherman.
Okay, well then you like one of those guys that's on like The Deadliest Catch.
Yeah,
that's a fucking dangerous
fisherman.
Job. Very dangerous job, but it's different kind of danger. It's like your danger because of the elements and because of the nature of your work. The scary thing about being a cop is someone might try to kill you because you're a cop. You're basically a professional enemy, right? You're walking around, and especially now, post George Floyd, and not just George Floyd, but all the different cases where we've seen police brutality, we've seen horrible things that the cops have done. It's made people hate cops even more than they did before.
But what about, you saw all those videos of those cops out of fucking control as a group.
Yes.
As a group, just randomly beating the shit out of it. They don't care. And
there becomes a them versus us mentality that happens with police officers. It's a scary thing.
Yeah.
It does. And I've talked to cops about it, and it's a thing that, and when you're pulling up on somebody and they have tinted windows and you have no idea what the fuck is going to go on. And we've all seen videos of cops getting shot from pull. I mean, if you're watching boat crashing videos and not watching those videos.
I like to watch the videos where the guys assert their First Amendment rights to the cop, where the cop says, "Give me your ID." I don't have to. Am I being accused of a crime? Do you think I'm committing a crime? But I don't have to give you. I love those guys.
It's interesting when someone pulls someone over, does have legal expertise, and they talk circles around the cop.
Yeah,
that is.
Yes.
Especially when the cop's being a dick.
Yeah, and the cop, and then they have those dash cams, and
yeah.
So I think what you have to do to fix policing is I think policing is broken in America, and they do have that. So you got to stop hiring ex-military people to be cops because
Why is that?
Those people have PTSD and they were trained to see the person they're policing as the enemy, and that's not good. That's also how they.
But they also have experience in conflict, and they also understand how to handle high pressure situations because they have experience in those.
I would say that's a different kind of experience. I mean, they're not saying that they don't
It
have
is
that.
a different kind of experience, right? It's a different kind of experience. You're talking about like armed conflict in overseas
Right.
versus pulling
Right.
somebody over for a traffic stop. Yes.
And most cops never use their gun.
Most cops, right? Yeah.
And my dad never fired his gun. He was a cop for whatever, 100 years. And but my dad did get his arm shattered one time.
How?
He was some guy, I forget what it was. He had to trying to arrest him, and it was on a stairway. And they went down the stairway, and they went down on my dad's arm, and so it kind of shattered his arm. But he's all right.
It's a rough fucking job.
So what you do is, I had it explained to me by this guy who was a Baltimore sergeant, and he studied it, right? He became a scholar and looked into, because he found out, like, oh my God, turned out I was a bad guy. He thought
Which guy is this?
this guy's name was Michael Wood. I don't know
I
if
had
you've
him on
heard-
the podcast.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
I had him on my show too, and he explained all that stuff. Like, I thought I was one of the good guys, and when I looked at the stats of what I was doing, I was also part of the problem.
Well,
Like,
here's what the most interesting thing is. He found a piece of paper that was arrest reports and a crime report from the 1970s, and the exact same crimes in the exact same neighborhoods that he was policing now. And he realized, like, holy shit, this is like the definition of systemic. Like, this system is fucking broken. These people live in this place where it's a constant sea of crime. Like, and they grow up in it. They're surrounded by it, and next generation is going to experience the same thing unless something happens and something changes, and nothing happens and nothing changes. And this is one of the things that I said about COVID when all this went down. I'm like, how much money would it take to invest in these communities and make it so that people that grow up there have a fucking chance? Because if you're fucked, if you're growing up in a bad neighborhood of Detroit, in a bad neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, all these crime-ridden, gang-infested neighborhoods, it's not much different now than it was a decade ago, and not much different from a decade previous. And it's going to stay this way unless something happens. And if you really want America, you want to make America great again, here's what you do. You have less losers. Here's how you have less losers. You make it so that it's easier to survive, and it's easier to get an education. It's easier to pursue a career, and you're not living in some crime-infested, gang-infested neighborhood. And the people that think that you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like, listen, motherfucker, you never lived in these places. You don't know what you're talking about. That's a crazy thing to say, because no one started. It's not like we're all on the same starting block and everybody gets to, we're all living in fucking a nice neighborhood in Springfield, Massachusetts. No, that's not what most people are living in. Most people are living in a fucked place in these gang-infested neighborhoods that we're talking about, crime-infested neighborhoods. Baltimore, like he was talking about. It's just when you see that it's the same situation time after time again, and then nothing gets done to fix that. Like, why wouldn't we invest in that?
I couldn't agree with you more. What they're doing in Illinois, or what they said they were going to do, was, so I think they legalized marijuana, and the governor said that we're going to reinvest the money in the neighborhood that we used to spend on criminalizing and prosecuting these crimes. We're going to reinvest that money into the neighborhoods that was most affected by the enforcement of these drug laws. So maybe they will do that, maybe they won't.
Well, if they do and they fix it, holy shit, what a great model that would be for the rest of the country.
Yeah. How about, what they do in, like, Finland? They have 3 teachers and 20 kids in each class. Like, why don't we do that?
Right.
Why don't we do that? And every teacher, the main teacher has a master's. And so why don't we invest? That's how you can invest. So that's what Finland, was it Finland? I think it was Finland. That's what they did I think it was Finland to get. It was one of those countries.
Isn't it the kind of thing though, like we're talking about, where they're not fucked and they're trying to fix it? It's like they had a better idea and they progressed with this better idea.
But they weren't doing well.
But they were never fucked the way
That way we're fucked.
Right,
No.
right. That's the thing. It's like we're fucked so hard that, and cops get paid. I mean, and rather, teachers get paid so little.
They should get paid double.
They should. Well, if it's one of the most important jobs.
It's the most important job, and now they have them in 40 kids in a class. It's
crazy.
So my wife's was a high school until recently high school English teacher, and she couldn't believe it, how they would just give her more kids, and she's like, how am I supposed to do that? I have 182 kids every day.
That's insane.
Different. So if 1 out of 1 out of the 10 people are psychopaths, that means she has
1 out of 100.
Okay, so that she's got at least 2 of them. And then a
Right.
couple sociopaths.
Right.
What she likes to say is, before you see them on the news, I see them in the classroom.
So, and really, what's happening? It's happening in the house, right? It's happening in their neighborhood. It's happening. They're developing this way, and until we put a stop to that, until we make it so that where they're developing is a better environment. And it can be done. This is not insurmountable. This idea of like nation building. We're willing to go to other countries and overthrow their governments, but we're not willing to invest in the cities in our own country.
I agree.
And try to fix these neighborhoods that have been fucked for decades.
So they just ramped up the military budget again for Joe Biden. They gave him an extra $20 billion. For what? $20 billion again. Like, imagine if you took that $20 billion and you just decided to build like a sports stadium in 20 of the biggest cities in America for $1 billion each. Do you know how many jobs that would create? You know how many economic? But instead, that goes into the pocket of the guy at Raytheon, into a bomb that ends up in the ground somewhere. And it's ridiculous how we're spending. The worst way to create jobs is defense spending, right? It's the least efficient way is defense spending. They say, well, yes. So they've done studies, and it's the least. For every dollar you spend defense, you get the least amount of jobs. In case, like if you put the money in somewhere else, you would get more jobs.
What's the most efficient?
So I think stand-up comedy club. Yeah, I think they should put some money in stand-up comedy. We should need more comedy clubs. Obviously,
For sure.
That's what we need. What's the comedy scene like here in Austin now?
It's great. Yeah, I mean, there's several clubs that have opened up since I moved here.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Creek in the Cave, where you
I was at the Creek in the Cave
great.
last night. It's a wonderful club.
It's great.
And
Shout
they had
out to
shows all
Rebecca.
night.
Yeah, they have shows all the time.
They had a show before my show, and then they had a show after my show.
Vulcan Gas Company's great. There's a place called Sunset Strip Comedy Club, and then there's the Romo Room, and then the word is that Helium is opening up a club out here, and they're going to reopen Cap City.
I like Helium.
And I'm opening up a club, and I'll tell you all about that when we get off the air.
Oh, okay.
I should have already had it open, but I'll tell you all about what happened there too. There was a giant disaster. There was literally could have been a huge problem. I had to get out of a deal.
Oh, okay.
Long story.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, but the scene here is great. A lot of upcoming comics, and a lot of comics have moved here, so it's exciting. It's exciting, and it's Texas. Texas is like, it's a fun place. It's like you have more freedom here. They're not going to close down the comedy clubs the way they closed them down in Los Angeles for more than a year.
They're doing the masks indoors shit again, and are they doing it here? I was at the hotel.
No.
I didn't have to wear a mask inside if I'm vaxxed. How do they know who's vaxxed?
They're not even saying that in comedy clubs. They're just letting people make their own decisions, which I 100% support and agree with.
Me too.
You know, just do what you want to do, like you always have been able to do what you want to do with all these other aspects of your life. In terms of like being able to jump off a fucking building and do backflips, you can do that, but you got to wear a mask when you do it.
So what about can we talk about ivermectin?
Yeah, sure.
So I covered it, what they did in Mexico City, and ivermectin seems to be a drug that not only treats it, but it will prevent you from getting it.
I think we need studies. We need legitimate studies, and I don't know how that happens, because the problem with this argument, this conversation is, you know, you'll have people saying, I've used this on my patients, like Dr. Pierre Corey, who's been on this podcast. And I 100% believe him, and I support him, and I'm not saying that he's not telling the truth. The problem is, I think in order to state something emphatically, like this is what we need to do, this is the best treatment, we need studies. Right? This is the only way you find out. And, well, who's going to fund these studies?
Who's going to fund a study?
And the problem is it's a generic drug.
That's it. No one wants it.
It's a drug that's been around for 40 years, has a long history of use, And also, there's a difference between using it as a prophylactic, so using it as a preventative measure, which is one of the things that Dr. Pierre Corey talked about on this podcast. I forget where they used this, but it was there was hundreds of doctors, and then there was a percentage of them that used ivermectin as a prophylactic, and there's a percentage that did not. The percentage that did not, half of the doctors roughly, or half of the healthcare workers got COVID. The percentage that did use it as a prophylactic, 100% did not get it. Now, I don't know if they got lucky. This is why you need a large study, and it's a long-term study. Maybe, I don't know, what was their job different than the people who got it. I don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when I'm a fucking comedian and a cage fighting commentator. When I'm talking about very important issues, I have to hedge my opinions on these things.
I know.
It's tricky.
But in an environment where people aren't allowed to talk or question things, well, for instance, my doctor. So when I got the vaccine, I got the double. And
which one did you get?
I got the Moderna because I have an underlying health problem. I've talked about it before on the show.
We have talked about it, yeah.
And so my doctor, because people are like, why did you trust the government? No, I don't trust the government. You trust Big Pharma? No, I don't trust Big Pharma. I trusted my doctor.
Right.
My doctor who saved my life and said that because of your thing, you should get it because we don't know how it's going to affect you and you blah, 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 blah. So I got it. And then, the symptoms you get from it, they never went away for me.
What were your symptoms?
So I had body aches, flu-like fever. I had joint pain. I had a stiff neck.
Have you tried going in an ice bath for 20 minutes? Sorry.
Yeah.
So how long did it?
I'm still cold. I'm cold.
Just warming up now. It's fucking
tell.
2 hours into this podcast.
I can tell.
Is how long did it last? How long did your symptoms last?
So on April 17th, I got the second jab, and I just never got better.
Was it immediate? After the first jab, did you have side effects?
Yes, but they went away. And then the second jab.
How long did they last after the first shot?
I don't remember, but because
a couple days.
Yeah, it was like maybe a week. I think a week, and then the second time they just never went away, and I was like, what is going on? Because I would get these waves of exhaustion a couple times a day. And then my producer had the same at the fifth week, I had a stiff neck. He got a stiff neck, and my wife got a stiff neck. And we all got the stiff neck on the side where we got the shot. So I got it on this side. They got it on that side. And then I looked it up, and it turns out stiff neck is a thing that people experience from the jab. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. They don't tell you that. And so that's common. I'm like, okay. And then it spread to the whole neck. Okay. Now, my producer and my wife, it went away. Their stiff necks went away. Mine didn't. So anyway, I tweeted about it. I tweeted like, hey, this is just to let everybody know this is what's happened. This is my reaction to the vaccine.
Yeah.
And because when people started to come on me, like call me anti-vax, and I'm like, no, I got the vax.
Right.
I got it. I go, when people have a reaction to an experimental vaccine that is not FDA approved, you're supposed to not suppress the reactions. You're supposed to ask people what the reactions are so we can make the vaccines better.
That's a thing that when Jen Psaki's talking about misinformation online and combating misinformation, she distributed misinformation.
Of course.
Because she said that it's approved by the FDA and their gold standard.
She said that?
She said that.
It is not approved. When you go to get the vaccine,
pull that up. Let's make sure that she said it. I'm 99% positive she said that, because I remember reading that going, you can't say that when you're the White House press secretary, because that's not a true statement. It's approved for emergency use authorization because we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. We're in an emergency.
Yes, but it's not an FDA approved.
Joe, when you go get the jab, they give you a piece of paper, and on it in bold black letters, it says, this is not an FDA-approved vaccine.
Right.
And they go, you see that? And I'm like, yeah. They go, you okay with that? Yeah, I guess. My doctor said I'm supposed to be here. And
Did you find it?
Yeah, I found the transcript of it. I didn't find the video.
Well,
okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw the video, but I definitely have read the transcript, and I want this to be accurate, because it's a big accusation.
This is what she said here when someone asked about the misinformation.
What is this from? Whitehouse.gov.
Yeah.
Okay. So more than just a competition about vaccines, the risk, impact. Okay, here it is. misleads the public by falsely alleging that mRNA vaccines are untested and thus risky, even though many of them are approved and have gone through the gold standard of the FDA approval process. That's right. That's not true.
So she's saying many of the mRNA vaccines.
Right. There's only 2 that are mRNA vaccines. That's messenger RNA. That is the Pfizer and the Moderna. That's the ones that we use in America. The Johnson & Johnson is it's an adenovirus vaccine. It's different, as is the AstraZeneca, right? The AstraZeneca, I believe, is very similar to the Johnson & Johnson. They're different. But the point is...
Yeah, the Johnson & Johnson uses the old technology, and the Moderna and Pfizer, they use the ones that was developed by DARPA.
Yeah, but the point is, it's like, it's not FDA approved.
No, because that takes a while.
So if she's saying that... Right.
Isn't that misinformation?
It is.
Seems like it.
And if it says it when you get the jab and it says it in bold print. And so your experience, even though you this is your personal experience and you did get vaccinated, people are so rabid online about this.
Oh my God.
It is the most divisive subject I think ever since Trump. It really is. It is a nutty, divisive subject. And people just get furious about it. And they're furious if anybody talks about any negative side effects, even if it's accurate.
I know. So I had tweeted about it just because I wanted to see if other people had this experience.
Right.
And, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's not. So I got contacted by lots of people. Same experience, and I got contacted by a doctor who's leading a bunch of other doctors, a group of doctors, and studying this, and they just submitted a paper on people about the vaccine, right? And so he tells me over a DM, this is what we think is happening. This is a spike protein. You're suffering from a spike protein thing, and blah, blah, blah. And go to see your doctor, and hopefully your doctor will work with us and give me ivermectin and fluvoxamine I'm taking for inflammation in my brain.
You have inflammation in your brain?
Well, that's because it causes inflammation. So the spike proteins cause inflammation. And so they did some kind of blood test on me, and they said, yeah, you got the thing.
Was it a D-dimer test? Is that what it was?
Joe, you got me. But
Okay.
they said, you have the same, you're right where a long-haul COVID person is. Like whatever the markers were, I had the same thing. You're right there. And so I go to my doctor, and I start to explain to my doctor about what this other doctor told me. And my doctor says, oh, I'm treating 5 people just like you. And one of them is a neurosurgeon, and one of them is a nurse. And they were afraid to talk about their symptoms because they were afraid to be ostracized and stigmatized. And I'm like, what a messed up situation we're in this culture,
right?
When they politicize medicine, where doctors and medical professionals are afraid to talk about their symptoms. That's horrible.
It's also putting people in a position where big pharma is the good guy now.
Yeah.
Which has never happened before.
Never.
And especially the exact same companies that people were openly criticizing in the past and pointing out lawsuits that they've lost for hiding information about test results, about things that have happened during studies. And these same people are now ignoring any possible side effects.
It's nuts. So, how do we make it better? How do we know maybe some people, that suppression of data is not the way you improve a vaccine. The suppression of people's symptoms and data, that is not, and in anything, it's not how it works. No. But that's how they want it to work because of Trump. Because if you say, it's just crazy.
It is crazy.
Even that hydrochloroquine, right?
Hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine that Trump was touting, and they were like, he's nuts because he's touting it. I didn't know anything about it. But then all of a sudden studies came out that say, hey, no, that actually has been helping. So now we have contradicting studies, right? It was in Newsweek. I wasn't making it. I didn't pull it out of some crazy thing. It's establishment mainstream news thing. I'm pretty sure it was Newsweek. And I tweeted it out and I said, hey, can we stop? Now, can we stop politicizing medical science? Can we get back to just doing medical science again and asking questions?
How much damage did Trump do on the one conversation he had? Do something like cleaning, something where you
so much damage.
You do
put
like
bleach right in the.
It's so
light.
Much damage. You can kill it with light. It's going to be a miracle. Like that one thing where people are like, what the fuck is? Because he was riffing.
Yes,
he was clearly riffing.
Clearly riffing.
He didn't prepare for this. He probably just got done eating a fucking double cheeseburger, and he's like. Because
He's a salesman. He's just a big...
But because he's so divisive, like, everyone is still... It's almost like... Do you know, like, if you got in a fight with someone, like maybe your neighbor, and then you got in your car and there was a road incident, and you're like, get the fuck out of here! You're already so ramped up.
Yeah.
Because of the fight you got in with your neighbor.
Yeah.
This is what the whole country's like.
That's a great analogy.
That's what it's like. It's like the whole country just got in a fight with the neighbor. Like he's putting his trash can on your lawn.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you fuck. Keep him on your own side, you piece of shit. And then you're in your car. Fuck! And this is like the whole country is like at 8 out the door. Out the door in their car, already at 8, on a scale 1 to 10. They're already ready to go. And so whether it's the vaccine, or whether it's the border wall, or whether it's kids in cages, or what the fuck, whatever it is, everybody's so goddamn angry and ready to go. And then you deal with the economic crisis that a giant percentage of the country just went through over the past year, and then losing loved ones to this fucking disease and all this chaos and and so many people who I've never experienced like high levels of adversity, and all of a sudden they're confronted with it. If you've played it safe your whole life, you've really never done anything risky, never taken any chances, you've had a regular life with a regular job, you play it safe, and then all of a sudden now you're fucked and you're confronted with a perhaps deadly disease that might take you out, and you got all these other problems in the world, and everybody's like, and they don't have the coping skills. They don't have the ability to handle these things, and that's where we find ourselves as a country right now. And it's weird because then you have that with the echo chamber aspect of social media, where everybody's just looking for positive reinforcement of their own ideas and confirmation bias. It's wild.
The confirmation bias. But the weird thing is to see comedians that I came up with in Hollywood become conformists, right? And instead of being contrarian and taking the outsider position, they're literally imposing the status quo on people. It's like, that's not, you're supposed to be against the status quo if you're a comedian. I don't know how the fuck you guys got mixed up like this, but because you voted for Joe Biden doesn't make you a good person or a rebel.
What do you think they're going to do if Biden can't make it? Because you see that one
and no one talks
guy?
about that he's demented. When are the late night talk shows going to start making jokes about that?
They won't.
They're
not going to. Then I don't think they can. I don't think they'll be allowed to. You can. I can.
Yeah.
Kyle Kalinske can. But I don't think most people can. I don't think they're allowed to. I think if they try to, you'll be censored. I can't imagine that you could see Jimmy Kimmel talking shit about Biden and playing these clips. Did you see that one? Somebody posted it with him and Don Lemon. And someone just put it on Twitter. I think I retweeted it.
Biden and Don Lemon?
It's someone posted on Twitter. I forget the guy's name. He just wrote "crushing it."
Oh yes, I saw that. Crushing it.
It's wild.
Yes,
it's wild. I mean, he's basically saying nothing. And people go, "Oh, he's got a stutter."
He's got a stutter.
That's not stuttering. That's an incoherent sentence. He can't get a point across. He doesn't have a point. It seems like he's just trying to make word salad.
Yes.
And trying to get through this conversation. And Don Lemon is like nodding as if everything he said makes sense because he has to.
Joe Biden is now, they're saying he's making the decisions on who to bomb. Joe Biden is making the decisions on who to bomb. Joe Biden gets stuck in a couch half the day.
I don't think he gets to choose what flavor ice cream he likes.
I don't think so either.
Did you see? But there was a guy that was from was the Obama administration or who it was who was saying that he doesn't think he's going to make it over in the next year. So he doesn't think he's going to make it to a year into the White House. He said within a year he'll be removed.
He's already as bad as Reagan was at the end of his second term. I mean, that's how bad he is going in.
Yeah, I think it's worse. I'm going to be honest.
I bet it's worse. It seems worse. It does seem worse.
And I don't know what happens then. Because I don't know what will happen if Kamala Harris becomes the president. I don't know if people are going to accept that. I don't think they want that.
They didn't in the primary. No, she couldn't get a vote. She couldn't get a delegate. But nobody wants her.
I don't think we are getting this. If things become more divisive, if we get more torn, if people saying like she didn't even win, like how is this possible?
Right?
He won, and now she's the president. This is madness, and what is going to happen?
I think the people actually can. What is going to happen, I hope, is that the populist left and the populist right do come together because of the things that we agree on. We want to end these wars. Nobody wants to spend $1 trillion blowing up other countries anymore.
We want health care.
We want health care. People want a living wage. And I think people would like to end the drug war.
Yeah.
So I think, why can't we all? So that's what scares them if we come together. Joe, that's the scariest thing to them. You know, when they killed Fred Hampton, when did they kill Fred Hampton? When he started...
Who's Fred Hampton?
Okay, so he was a Black Panther in Chicago, and
this is the FBI.
Yeah,
this
so
is
he's an amazing guy.
Right.
And anytime you see a video of him talking, it's just amazing. The way and so they had to get rid of him because he started.
Is this in the 60s?
Yeah, so in Chicago, and he started to hang out and work with. There was a bunch of young Southerners, right, racists who came to Chicago, and they were also treated as outsiders because they had accents and they were from the South, and so they were shit on, just like Fred Hampton and the blacks were shit on. And so he worked with them, and he said I had to show them that I was real, and so when he started working with them, they were still carrying the Confederate flag, and after he worked with them, they dropped that shit. And they dropped that racism stuff, and they saw that they had a common interest, and that's when they killed him. When did they kill Martin Luther King? Not when he was getting people to be able to ride in the front of the bus. They killed him when he turned against the Vietnam War and was doing a poor people's campaign. He was doing stuff for workers, and that's when they killed him. So when did they kill Malcolm X? When he realized white people aren't the enemy. And we could all come together. So as soon as Joe, I saw it as soon as I interviewed a guy. I literally trended on Twitter for 3 fucking days because I interviewed a guy. People have interviewed David Duke on every goddamn news show, and nobody ever trended because
Twitter
of it.
Is so insane right now.
I interview a guy with no power, and nobody, no power. People went nuts, and and it just goes to show me that that's how they try to shut me down. They can't shut me down. And they don't know what to do, and I'm not stopping. And just like the other day when I said we got to make up the squad uncomfortable, we got to make Bernie Sanders uncomfortable, because those are the people that we have influence over. Those are the people we helped get elected. Those are the people who ran on Medicare for All, and those are the people who are abandoning it. Those are the people who won't use their leverage to get us anything. Bernie could put a hold on a bill anytime he wants, and he won't do it. He won't go against Joe Biden. He's acting as if Joe Biden is his boss. And that's why we're in the position. We're looking at Joe Manchin, all the power Joe Manchin has. Everybody laments Joe Manchin like he's running the party. Well, he's only running the party because the donors allow him to, and they're not going to cross them. And that's where we're at.
Do you think it's possible that with the rise of independent media, that we could get to the point where the people actually do have a voice, and it's not filtered through corporate media? And that it keeps getting, think about where your show was. What year did you start your show?
Well, I started the radio in L.A. in 2009.
But the Jimmy Dore Show?
2015 in December.
So think about that, right? Not that long ago.
Right.
6+ years ago. Not that long. What do you think it's going to be in 10 years? Right? Think about all these different breaking points with Crystal and Sauger. Mm-hmm. Think about what that's going to be like in 10 years. Think of all these different shows that are independent shows. If they get to a level where they have mainstream acceptance and the people do have a voice on things, it could literally change all aspects of politics to the point where you're already looking at massively reduced ratings for a lot of these television shows now that Trump's not in office, and people are saying, Bill Burr went on this great rant the other day about how they're un-American because they literally want to talk about Trump because they want ratings. They don't give a fuck about what the actual news is or what the impact of talking about it is. They just want those numbers because they're in the numbers business. You are in the opinion business. You are in the perspective business. That's the difference.
Well, I'm in that business for sure, but I'm also in the we've covered stories that other people won't cover. So we're in the fact business.
But you're in the perspective. You're looking at things, but you're in a sense a pure perspective. It's just you. Mm-hmm. It's just you and the people who work with you,
unfettered.
Yeah, that is the future. I think.
I hope so.
I really do, because your show continues to get bigger. Crystal and Sauger's new show just took out of the gates, fucking guns blazing. This is what's happening now. And I think it's terrifying to mainstream media, but it's not terrifying to the public. And if advertisers come around and they go, you know what, we still make money, but we got all these fucking people just say what they say. And there's a lot of money in being advertised on these networks. And instead of having influence over them, you just advertise on them. It's a change in the whole market.
I hope that happens, but it seems like now, you talked about it before, how they don't recommend. So they're suppressing independent news, and even the head of YouTube bragged about it because they call us borderline content. And so they say that we've reduced the recommendations of borderline content by 80%.
What does that mean? What does borderline content mean?
Anything that scares them. So,
but realistically, I know that's a thing to say, anything that scares them. But what is that? When they say if they're in a meeting and they go, hey, we got to restrict borderline content. Well, they're just talking about factual stuff. Is that borderline? Is borderline objective reporting of actual events as they're taking place internationally and locally?
Well, like if you said that the coronavirus was started in a lab, that would be considered borderline.
It used to be.
It used to be.
Used to be, but now it's on the cover of Newsweek.
Yeah.
And now it's discussed openly.
So it's borderline until the establishment media reports it. Then
Right.
it's not borderline
Right.
anymore. So if I say that the Syria gas attacks weren't real or that they were as a cover-up, they're going to consider that borderline until the establishment media agrees with me.
I forgot to ask you this. I want to go back to this, though. Your thing with the side effects of the vaccine, you said it lasted for a month.
No, they're still lasting.
How are you? What's going on now?
So I would say I'm about 80% better.
80%.
So 80 to 85% better. I still get joint pain, and my neck is stiff. But the waves of exhaustion I don't have anymore, and that's really important to me. And I don't get the fever. You know how when you have a fever, everything hurts?
Yes.
So I had that, but that's gone now.
For a month.
A little more.
More.
Yeah, so at least probably a month and a half, at least, maybe 2.
And they treated you with, say the drugs again?
So ivermectin and then fluvoxamine. And fluvoxamine is an antidepressant, but it also has anti-inflammatory properties. And so I go, why am I taking an anti? And they go, no, that's for the inflammation in your brain, in case you have it.
And how does the ivermectin
That's how you get brain
affect?
fog. You get brain fog. That's
Right.
from inflammation in your brain.
How does the ivermectin work? What are they
So
saying?
they told me, again,
Right.
I'm just
Both
an
of us.
idiot.
Yeah, both of us are
So
idiots.
they were telling me that they think that I am suffering from the same spike protein thing that you get when you get COVID, and that this somehow, the way they explained it to me, that this will go and clean out a macrophage, like the spike protein embeds itself in a macrophage, and then so this goes in there and cleans it out somehow.
Is this a controversial treatment?
I think yes, because I know a guy who just got the COVID, and I told him, hey, you should get the ivermectin, and he said, I just talked to 3 doctors and they won't prescribe it.
But here's what's weird to me. I thought that one of the ways that they've treated what they call long COVID is with the vaccine.
Oh,
the
really?
vaccine is, the vaccine, one of the effective uses of the vaccine is it's helped people with long COVID, which is whatever the fuck that is.
Yes.
What is long COVID?
Means that you don't get better.
Right, but what are they specific symptoms that are across the board with everyone who has this thing that they're calling? You know what I'm saying? Like if you have the flu, oh, hey Jimmy, you got the flu.
Yeah.
We know what you have,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have long COVID, like what is that? What exactly does that mean? What's
I
causing
think that means you have the spike proteins going. What I was explained to me is that it's like a dump truck. These spike proteins full of garbage, and they go around your body, creating inflammation wherever they go.
And I have read that for long COVID, the vaccine has been effective.
Really?
Yeah, let's see if we can find that because I'm very sure that I've read that.
Wow.
That's one of the benefits of the vaccine was that people with long COVID who suffered from COVID and then took the vaccine, it actually helped them in more than one. I mean, I don't know if it's true.
So they say.
See why vaccines may be helping some
Wow,
with long
there it
COVID.
is.
Yale researcher is eager to find answers. So scroll down, see if
That
we-
is wild.
Yeah, it's wild. So this is one of the things about this fucking disease. It's so weird.
See, when symptoms linger for weeks or even months, persistent and unpredictable symptoms, long COVID,
Yeah.
chronic.
Why might the vaccine help some people? Are some vaccines better at this than others? Could a tool designed for prevention also serve as a treatment? So Akiko Iwasaki, PhD, professor of immunobiology at Yale School of Medicine and a major contributor to the existing body of COVID-19 research, is among those now focused on generating hard data on vaccinated long haulers to help answer these questions. She is currently working with other scientists to launch what she predicts will be a large collaborative study at Yale. So they're trying to figure this out. But that's the thing about this disease is like, you know, whether or not it came out of a lab, it seems likely that that's a possibility at least. It's a fucking weird disease, man. It's weird. Some people lose their sense of smell. Some people don't. Some people get horrible headaches and body aches. Some people don't get shit. I have a lot of friends that caught it and it just went in and out of their system. My real estate lady, she got it. She didn't feel anything. She had to get tested 3 times with the PCR tests, and they said, "Yeah, you have it." She's like, "Okay, I guess I have it." She didn't feel a damn thing. And you know,
I know both sides too.
It's great. It's weird. It's a crazy disease.
But we have to stop making people afraid to talk about
Right.
it, and we have to stop making people afraid to recommend treatments, and we have to stop politicizing fucking medicine.
Yeah.
We have to be able to let people talk about what their experiences is from getting a vaccine or taking a medicine. That's, again, you don't suppress data in the interest of science. That's not how science works.
No.
And so anybody getting mad, but people did get mad at me for saying this. It's crazy.
About your own body.
About my own people
Yeah.
say I was making it up. People said I was making it up. I'm like, no, I'm trying to help everybody.
Are these
And now I have
people-
to stick my chin out to do this. Now I have to take fucking kicks in the chin from trying to help everybody because I'm already fucked. I already have this problem. Go ahead.
There's so many instances online of fake accounts that are, I don't know how they're created. I don't know what the purpose of them is, but there's documented multiple fake accounts, some of them with check marks, and that these fake accounts will go after a certain narrative, and they'll either be a proponent or an opponent of certain narratives.
Yeah.
And it's so confusing because, like, is this happening? Are these foreign entities? Are they national? Are these intelligence groups? Like, what is
Right?
Because here's the thing about social media: we know that it has insane amounts of power to influence people, but we also know that the government knows this, and we also know that foreign governments know this,
And corporations know this.
and corporations know this, and we know that foreign government. At least we know from the research that's done on the IRA in Russia. You know, that Internet Research Agency?
Yeah.
Where Renee DiResta has extensive coverage of this. And I had her on the podcast. It's wild shit. And Sam Harris had her on his podcast. That's how I found out about her. And it's crazy how much she's found out. Like all the hundreds of thousands of memes, all these different accounts, all designed to manipulate narratives and to get people to argue for or against things and to make conflict, to put people against each other.
But I was under the understanding that the establishment wanted you to think that was the government of Russia trying to do that to control our elections, when in reality it was just a troll farm built to make accounts that you would follow, and then they would spam you and they would try to sell you shit. Wasn't that what IRA was?
It's both. I think it's a lot of different things. I think it's they definitely were using memes, and they were definitely using like fan pages. They would put up a fan page of something that was very popular, and they would get people to sign up for this fan page, and then they would switch what the fan page is used for, and then use it to promote certain ideas.
Right.
And they would and they would pit people against each other. They had a Texas separatist meeting that they organized across the street from a pro-Muslim meeting.
Yes.
They did it on purpose. Like they did. It's almost like they're playing with people. And you know, what is the end goal? Is there many end goals? Is it just to make unrest? Is it some sort of long plan to get us at each other's throats because it's fucking working? If that's what the plan was, if the plan by all these foreign governments is to make Americans and pit them against each other like rabid dogs and use the fact that there are these echo chambers on the internet, and, you know, that's a terrible way to talk to people online when no one's there, in text. You have no idea what the context is. You don't see their expression. There's no social cues. You don't know what kind of a person is writing this. Who are they? Are they crazy? Are they kind? Are they really fed up? Are they being sarcastic? You really don't fucking know.
So again, I'm not afraid of this stuff. I think it's a lot of it is hyped up to make you afraid, and. I just think that it's like, I'm sure when the printing press was invented, everybody was scared anybody could go print a paper. Yeah. Anybody could do it. And it's just like, to me, that's just what the Facebook is, Twitter, YouTube. It's just a printing press, and everybody could go print stuff. And some people are better. You know, there's guys like that guy Brooklyn Dad Defiant, who's on Twitter, and it got outed that he's being paid by these, you know, nefarious organizations and stuff to tweet stuff. And
he's being paid to tweet?
He was being paid. It came out.
This is proved?
Yeah.
Can you pull that up? We'll find that. I've seen that guy. I've seen posts from him. He seems like he's a very popular Twitter.
20,000 likes, 50,000 likes, 170,000 likes on shit.
And so how does that work?
And it's
do you start off paid or do you start off popular?
No, I don't know how you start off, but
you know what I'm saying? Like, how, is it
like? Do they identify the popular guys and then go for them?
Right? Is he's very progressive, right?
No.
No?
He's a Democratic establishment defender.
Oh.
So, but he probably, it's a head fake of progressiveness, just like the Squad. Hey, we're for Medicare for
So
all.
it's like
except
when a
we-
corporation is LBGTQ
Yes,
friendly.
that's right.
But they're dropping bombs overseas.
That's right.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. It's a weird little flag to fly while you're killing people.
And it's a
right?
weird thing,
Yeah.
isn't it, Joe? They're doing that now. They're celebrating
Yes.
the LGBTQ in the military. It was like a joke we used to make, and now they're actually doing it.
Okay, here it is.
The controversy behind the Brooklyn Dad Defiant
It's
is weirder than you think.
Than you'd think. With nearly 900,000 followers. How do you say his name? Majid
Padalin?
Padayan.
One of
Twitter's most vocal supporters of Joe Biden.
So that's not a progressive.
Fucking red flag.
Yeah.
It comes with some confusion, though, as the account prides itself on being a whistleblower and a steadfast liberal. Huh.
He was served backlash from leftists, among other things, urging Bernie Sanders to drop out. So he's not, right? So he's an establishment tool. He's a tool of the
And
establishment.
discrediting Tara Reid's allegations of sexual assault.
He accepted tens of thousands in donations from a Democratic PAC. There it is.
Wow.
Right? There you go.
Yeah,
he got $60,000 in 2020. In his bio, he says that he works for a PAC as a senior advisor. So there you go.
So, okay. But that's what's interesting about social media, right? Is that they can get someone who's a good writer, who writes things that resonate with people, and either he's always done that and that's why he does it, or they find you and they give you money. Like you're talking about the Squad. You're talking about people with all these radical ideas and very progressive ideas, but then they get into office and they go, wait a minute,
Yeah.
all I have to do is 5 years?
That's it,
5
right?
years? I get Medicare for
I
life?
just don't rock the boat.
I get health care for life?
And pension for life?
And wait, how much do you get, Hillary, for one of them talks?
Yeah, right?
How much of them talks?
So you
what
know-
kind of a house does Nancy Pelosi have? How does she do that? Like,
Nancy Pelosi's a 100 millionaire.
yeah. And how did that happen?
How did that happen? Well,
Please explain.
So Truman said that the only people who get rich while in government are crooks. And Nancy Pelosi became a 100 millionaire since she's been in government. So you tell me. Right now, we just did another story how she made all this money off of these visors, these night vision visors that were given to a company. She invested in that company right before they announced it. And that came from the government. And so people are like,
Well,
hey,
her
that's...
husband invested,
Yeah,
right?
that's
but
what
she
they do.
doesn't talk to her husband because that would be unethical.
They never talk.
There's no way they would talk about.
They wouldn't. That would be unethical.
It's very unethical, and it'd be kind of insider trading, which
that-
she would not do.
Which she would not do.
She also would, when they tell her to wear a mask, she wears a mask. And when beauty salons are shut down, she definitely doesn't go to a beauty salon when they're shut down with no mask on, because that would be bad.
That would be bad. And she's the one who stopped people from getting the $2,000 checks as a win over Trump.
My favorite thing was when she said that they should apologize to her because they set her up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
she
it was
a victim.
setup.
She was a victim.
And everybody just went, okay.
Okay.
She's good enough. Good enough. They just let it slide because she's a Democrat. It's so wild what people get away with. That
And-
they just let stuff slide. Like, okay, well, that's a good narrative I can get behind.
And how much different is Nancy Pelosi than, say, Mitch McConnell or somebody? Mitch McConnell doesn't want you to have Medicare for all. Neither does Nancy Pelosi. Mitch McConnell doesn't want you to have a living wage. Neither does Nancy Pelosi. Mitch McConnell wants to keep the wars going. So does Nancy Pelosi. Mitch McConnell wants to keep pot schedule. So does Nancy. What is going on?
What is going on?
What are the big? Where are the big differences? Oh, Nancy Pelosi will wear an LGBTQ flag scarf or something.
My favorite one was when her and Chuck Schumer wore the African garb and got on their knees, and it turned out that the very patterns that they wore were from a tribe that was like actively involved in, like, at the time in the slave trade.
No kidding.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
See if you can find that. Make sure that's
I remember
true.
when they did the kneel, they took a knee and they're all
with the garb on. Like, this is like,
so this is what identity
but that's
politics.
yeah, exactly. It's such.
So-
it's so obvious.
So instead of giving, so you know what would help, I think, black people more than anything in the United States? A living wage, Medicare for all, free college, end of drug war. I think that would help them more than anything. But what did Joe Biden do? He gave them a Juneteenth holiday. I bet you people would rather trade that for all those things I just said. So that's the identity politics. And the joke that I have is I say that if it was 1860, the Democrats would be bragging about their first transgendered slave owner. Because that's where we're at.
Wow.
And I'm so afraid to talk about that stuff. I don't even like to talk about trans fats. That's how I feel. If you're whatever kind of fat you want to be, that's fine. You want to
Well,
go from
there's
a mono to a polyunsaturated? That's none of my fucking business.
There's a lot of people that are terrified to talk about so many subjects because they've made these subjects third rails.
Yes.
You even discuss them. Even just discussing them in terms of like the actual facts behind them. You're not even allowed to.
I know, right?
It's wild.
Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid to get canceled, and everybody's afraid. But that's why people are drawn to us.
Yeah.
Is because we show more courage most of the time, and we actually do talk about stuff like me just talking about my experience with the vaccine. Like most people are afraid. I know that I'm going to get shit on for that, and people already did it to me.
Twitter for a few days.
Just
Did we
Twitter.
find anything about the African stuff?
I just found a thing that's fact checking what you said.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. Sorry.
That's great.
But that's the problem. Literally, that is the problem with politics in this country. People are so fooled by the smoke and mirrors of, here, I'll give you a holiday. Here, I'll do this. Hey, why don't you help me? Why don't you help me get health care when I need it? How about so that I don't have to get tied to this shit job? So now I have freedom to go be an entrepreneur and actually make America better.
Right, because you don't have to get tied to a job in order to get health care.
That's right.
But this is like what we were talking about before about these echo chambers and also about being attacked on social media that makes it so dangerous to share and exchange ideas because you can't find out what's true unless people get to discuss things.
That's right.
There's only one way to find out who's right is you hear both sides present their story and present their argument. Then you have real accurate facts. You have to know who's telling the truth and what's true and what's not true in terms of reporting on whatever incident you're discussing, and then people get to decide.
This particular story goes very deep with what you're saying, but yeah.
Okay, it says fact check. Yes, kente cloths were historically worn by empire involved in West African slave trade.
Of course.
So of course, it's almost like whoever gave it to them
Did
knew.
it as an own?
Yeah, like here, put this on. Perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. I mean, what are the odds? I mean, you know that there's a lot of people that work for the Democratic Party that work inside that probably had like these very lofty ideals about saving the world and being progressive and we're going to make the world a better place. And then they get inside and they're like, holy shit. You know, I mean, it
It's
must
worse
be
than I
like
thought.
that.
Save yourself.
I
I'm
mean-
dead already.
How much of House of Cards was a documentary?
Right. I only watched the pilot episode and I stopped
Great
watching
show.
it.
God
Yeah.
damn, that's a great show. I know.
I should have watched it more. I just didn't like it. I don't know why I didn't like. I'm the only guy in the world that didn't like me. I don't know.
Maybe it's too close to home.
Maybe that was it because it made me. I hated them. Everybody in that pilot.
Yeah,
I hated
of course
them.
you hated them. I mean, he was evil.
Yes,
and he was
and his wife.
Yes, they were both evil, but that was the point.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Tony Soprano showed us that you could be a murderer and still be the star,
Yeah.
right? You could be an evil murderer and still be the guy that people look to be the star.
And you
It's
still
weird.
And you still have a soft spot for the ducks that come into your pool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the ducks were symbolic of something else. It was
I'm not an animal.
Yeah.
I like ducks.
That's a pretty good impression. That's not bad.
Can you believe how long that show's been off the air? I think it went off the air in 2008.
I forget every now and then that he's dead.
Can you? Yeah, me too.
I forget. I loved him. He was so good on that
great.
show. That was one of the greatest characters in the history of television. Him as Tony Soprano was so goddamn believable. He was such a good actor.
They say it was they've. I think TV Guide put it at the top TV show of all time. I think somebody did one of those things where it was considered the best TV show of all time.
You know what's amazing? If you go back and watch the first episode, it was basically a comedy. Did you ever watch the first episode?
Oh my God! It was like they were doing because they're
Yeah.
they're all doing the and
Yeah.
it was
Remember the wife had a fucking machine gun and someone was climbing up the stairs and she had a machine gun on him.
remember.
It was like a mob parody.
It was almost. And it
Yeah.
was like it was like there was a couple episodes where they were too much on the comedy.
A little bit.
Yeah, I was like, but it was funny.
Yeah, but then it got
Then it
super
got real.
serious and
Yeah.
fuck, it was good.
Yeah.
Fuck, it was good. Every week, couldn't wait. Oh, here it's on.
Yeah.
You know, the fucking song would play and you're like, oh, here we go. It was such a good show. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, and then, you know, obviously this was on HBO at the time, and there wasn't a Netflix back then. If it did exist, it didn't exist to the extent it existed now, where they have so many Netflix series.
Yeah.
I watch Netflix now, and I'm like, what is this? It's got 15 seasons. What the fuck is this?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, and it's good.
We're
You're like,
so
I got so much to
fragmented.
watch.
I don't watch anything.
No.
I don't. It's just so fragmented.
Right.
I just go to YouTube. Let's watch the car crash.
And then you can go to Amazon, and they have their own network too. And you go
Yes.
to Amazon Prime, there's
Right.
fucking millions of shows on there too. It's crazy.
There's too much stuff. I
Yeah.
don't know how people. That's why a show like this is such a big deal, because that's one thing that a lot of people are watching. You know, like when in the 70s and 80s, there used to be, 20 million viewers for a regular TV show.
Right.
And now it's not a couple million, right?
If they're
and
lucky.
you have a hit show.
Yeah. Well, if you're a cable show, it's a couple 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about key demographics on this one CNN show, and it was like they had 100,000 people. Like that's crazy.
Less viewers than one of my
That's
videos.
crazy. If you have one of your videos got 100,000, you're like, oh my god, I'm shadow banned. Right?
Well, I am. They kept my subscriber count at about 868,000 for about 3 months. So they really put the screws
How do they do that?
on me. So what they do is they unsubscribe people from your channel. So I don't
On
know.
purpose?
Yeah. So I don't know what the exact algorithm is, but that's what they do. And I would tell people, hey, people would always tell me, hey, I was unsubscribed. I don't know. So my own producer got unsubscribed from our show.
Whoa.
And so they do that. They go, we're getting rid of dead accounts. That's not what they're doing. What they're doing is they're trying to keep independent news. This is my theory. They're trying to keep independent news under 1 million subscribers because they don't want another hit piece from CNN or the Washington Post or New York Times saying, look at all these million subscriber borderline shows, and they got over 1 million. So they want to keep us, it seems like that way.
So they don't get attacked.
Because they've did the same thing to Kyle. Like his growth stopped. I mean, when he told me one day, he texted me, "Hey, they're really killing me. I'm not getting." And I looked at my numbers and I was like, "Me too." So they must have put an extra ratchet on there. So I finally got up to like 872 maybe the other day. So they're definitely. I've definitely got over 1 million subscribers.
Let's see what happens after
I've
this.
Definitely got over. You know what I mean?
Let's see if after this show you get a bump or not. And
I can just tell by my ticket sales.
I feel like I got out just in time. I really
From
do.
YouTube?
Yeah, I really do.
I would love Spotify to make me an offer. Mr. Spotify, wherever you are, please make me an offer. I would love to.
They're making offers. They just have that fucking Call Me Daddy or Call Her Daddy. What is it? Call Her Daddy? Call Her Daddy? That show, they the Dak Shepard show, that's over there now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of shows that they've taken. It's
Yeah, I would like to get away from these. I'm every day. I'm afraid you never know what they're taking down people's channels for videos they did 8 years ago.
right. Exactly.
That shouldn't
It's
happen.
weird.
That's not right.
Well, it doesn't make sense. But again, I think some of it is they're managing at scale, but also they're the only game in town, which is crazy. How is there one
YouTube
big time video platform where you can upload your own videos? I mean, there's Vimeo, there's a few other ones,
but they're not.
Not comparable.
Even
Nothing's
with-
comparable.
Even with YouTube suppressing the shit out of us with the algorithm,
It's the biggest thing
still
out
a
there.
better platform than any other platform.
Yeah.
Dude, like I said, I had my podcast. I started in like 2009 with my radio show, and I just sold handfuls of tickets for years.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got on YouTube, immediately, that was just like overnight. I'm like, this platform is way superior than every other distribution platform, YouTube. So you got to go on it, and there really isn't a competitor to it. I mean, there are people who claim they're competitors, but they're not.
No one's can compare. No, there's no comparison. But the thing that's brilliant about YouTube is their algorithm that recommends things similar to what you've already watched.
Yes.
I don't get recommended you at all anymore. I have to go find you. I don't. My recommendations. It's all like people kicking the shit out of each other and muscle cars and playing pool because I like to watch pool videos. That's like most of my recommendations. It's like you're not on there anymore. Kyle's not on there anymore. I have to go to your channel specifically to find you.
So people have to seek me out.
Yeah.
And I used to get way bigger numbers before. I would do on the regular do a video that got 800,000 or 1 million or so, or the Barry Weiss video did got 5.1 million. That's never going to happen again.
Right.
That's never happened.
It's so weird that there's only one platform like that. It seems like it's a no-brainer for someone to create a platform and say, hey, there's obviously some sort of suppression or some sort of censorship here that a lot of people are not agreeable to. Like let's create another platform and let's get a lot of money behind it because there's so much money in YouTube. I mean, YouTube is just fucking printing money. They're making so much loot.
know. Well, isn't Google the most profitable company in the history of the world?
If it's not, Apple is, right?
I think it's Google. I think Google is by far.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then there's of course Apple, and I mean, this really power is concentrated right now. And,
Yeah.
Well, I guess it always has been, but we used to have before the Telecommunications Act, So do you ever get that Jay Leno car show recommended to you? You ever get that?
I do. Yeah, that gets recommended to me. Well, we were talking about Jay Leno's car show. Like that is Such a good show. Jay Leno's Garage. And
So
what
watchable.
you were saying is that it's great because he fucking loves cars.
And you can tell. And he loves comedians.
He loves comics.
Jay loves comedians
Yeah.
and he loves cars. Those are two things he should be doing a show about.
Exactly. I love talking cars with him. I mean, when I came on with my Corvette and we were like talking about I have a 1965 Corvette and we're talking about that year and all these different cars. And you see his mind start spinning and all the sparks are flying. He loves it. And I was talking to him about it. I'm like, my God, man, you're so good at this. Like, this is so, because it resonates with him. And people can tell.
I can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell because I watched the show. I'm like, I want to watch it.
Did you ever see Bill Hicks' bit about him interviewing Joey Lawrence and blowing his brains out?
You dating? You dating?
And then he blows his brains out
you
and
drive a
forms an
car?
NBC peacock because he's a company man to the bitter end. But that is, I mean, that's what it is. It's like he was in this position where he had to promote these things that he didn't really care about. But now he promotes something he loves. He fucking loves cars.
And he's been hanging out at
perfect.
the club that I hang out at, right?
Which club is that?
I started hanging out at Flappers in Burbank. He used to go to the Comedy Magic Club in
Hermosa Beach.
But it didn't reopen after COVID.
It didn't?
No.
It's not open?
No, neither is the Ice House.
What?
Yeah.
They're
Well, the
not
Ice House
open?
got bought by that guy who owns the Lakers bus.
I think it's his son.
Or somebody.
Yeah.
So it's got big money, so they're not reopening. I don't know why. And so same thing with the Comedy Magic. So
Why isn't the Comedy Magic Club open again?
I don't know. I love that club.
Oh, it's a great club.
Yeah, I love that club.
Mike Lacey's the
Mike
nicest
Lacey's
guy
a
on the
nice guy.
planet. Nicest guy that's ever lived. Both guys, amazing.
They treat you great when you go down there.
Fantastic. The food is amazing.
It is
the atmosphere is incredible. The food is like a delicious restaurant. I'd go there just for the food.
I would go there just to get the blackened salmon.
It's
I would
amazing.
literally,
The
I'm like,
steak
oh,
is
great, the blackened
sensational.
salmon. So anyway, he's been hanging out at the Flappers, and it's like surreal. I was telling you before, it's like Santa Claus is talking to me. I'm like, because Jay Leno was a big influence for me to get into comedy. When he would come on David Letterman, it was a big night in my, because that was before YouTube, so you had to watch it when it happened, and that was it.
People who think of Jay Leno as the guy who hosted Tonight Show don't understand.
They don't
that
understand.
In his day, he was the fucking
best.
man. He was the man. In the 70s, and
Nobody better.
He was one of the best club comics alive.
Probably the best.
And everybody looked up to him. All
Yeah,
the comics, like he was edgy. He would go on those talk shows, and he was edgy.
He was edgy. He would do a bit edgy in a sense where he would do a bit that exposed corporatism.
Yeah.
And I remember he had I'll butcher it, but he had can you imagine him, because they had those, remember they came out with those soft baked cookies? Remember it was soft batch? Like, how do they do that?
Right.
It's like, can you imagine the board meeting? Hey, people like fresh cookies that are soft. What do? I know. We bake them fresh every day and get them to the stores immediately. You idiot. Johnson, we get a chemical that we put it in that makes them softer. Yeah, that's what we do. Good idea. That was, I butchered the joke, but that was his idea.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I remember he did that on the couch on Letterman. But anyway, it was such a big deal. And his Tonight Show, I don't think it was his best work because he wasn't interested, but now he's back to doing his best work because who could be interested in interviewing those fucking people?
Right.
Who could be interviewing? And he was a real comic, so he didn't give a shit. So that's how it felt to me anyway. But anyway, now he's doing that car show and now he's hanging out at the club. And it's just weird, really. It's like I walk in, he'll say, "Hey, Jimmy," and I'm like, "Oh, fuck."
You know me?
This is weird. He goes, "Hey, did you meet my wife?" Maybe he introduced me to his wife. Like he says my name, and it's just like it's too much for me.
Right.
It's too much for me. And I go in and I watch him do stand up, and he's got some great jokes. He's got a joke about this. I'm not going to do him, but he's got a joke about how you could never the song Shaft. You could never do it today, and he does it so funny. He's got a great Caitlyn Jenner joke. I won't do it, but it's God damn it. And I go, Jay, how do you get away with that Caitlyn Jenner joke? I don't fucking get away with it. Fucking Variety Magazine said shit. And it was funny because he's like, oh, you don't get it. So that made me feel better. Like, oh, people, he goes, yeah, no matter what you say, people give you shit today.
But that's their job. Their job is to talk shit about things and to make stories about something that's controversial.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and there's no controversy in his Caitlyn Jenner. It's just a joke.
But it doesn't matter if you make a joke about any protected class of people.
Yeah.
Anything. Whether it's a joke about something that's racial or sexual or anything. It's just everything's a fucking third rail today.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
but that's part of their job. Our job is to make fun of shit. Their job is to catch you in something that's controversial, so they can look. if they're writing articles for online for websites, they're in the fucking click business, right?
That's it.
If Jimmy Dore said what, bam, you got some clicks.
They did an article, and it was said the head of the dirtbag left or something. Jimmy
You're
Dore.
the head of the dirtbag.
That's what it
left?
said.
Oh, I should
And then
cozy up to you.
But I know.
I like to get in with the dirtbag.
Yeah, I'll help you. but they used a picture of me from like 2003.
You
I
look
was
good
so
back then.
happy.
So handsome.
I was so happy. I'm
Full-
like, oh my god,
Beautiful head of hair.
the whole
Yeah,
deal.
you look
Oh,
good.
now I'm fucking spray. I have this new spray that thickens your hair.
What is it?
It's because my hair it's called Topic something. It's a hair thickener.
Oh, that stuff. Yeah.
But it's not the fibers. It's like a
Right.
spray,
it actually makes it thick up.
Oh my
Right.
God! I was like, "Look at this! This is fucking awesome!" Because I didn't dye my hair for COVID. I'm pretty much all gray, and I hated it. I hated it.
Hated being all gray.
I hate looking in the mirror. I hated it.
That's the weird thing
Fucking
about Jay
hated
now.
it.
His white hair.
But it's thick.
Yeah.
His hair is thick, so it looks
Like
good.
a werewolf.
It's thick and it's wavy.
Yeah.
And to see Jay on stage at 71, I mean, he could be 51, 41. It doesn't matter. It's like there's no time.
Right.
It's really, honest to God, it is fucking thrilling to be on shows with him. And then he goes up early on the second show. On like at Saturday, he'll go up in second spot. And he'll do 30, and then when he leaves, the audience is so happy because they're like, "Oh,
Right.
fucking made a good decision tonight. We got a
Right.
good," and so they're just like butter the
Right.
rest of the night. Like Jay really sets a table. It is amazing.
Yeah, to
Anyway,
get a guy like him middling, it's hilarious.
it's right.
Yeah.
He will go up. He does 30. He did 30. Just 30 minutes. It's like
He's a pro. Yeah.
But I love it. It is like it's like hanging out with Santa Claus, and I hope he stays. I don't know why he's.
Well, he loves it. And that's the beautiful thing about when you're in a position like Jay Leno. One of the things they said about him is he never spent any of his Tonight Show money. He put it all in the bank.
I bank it.
I bank it.
I
All
bank it.
the money he made from comedy is the money that he buys a fucking 150,000 cars.
Yeah, he lives off his comedy money. That's
Yeah.
what I was told,
Yeah.
and he
It's
banks the
amazing.
rest of it. And
So he just enjoys telling jokes still. So
Yeah.
for him, it's a love. It's a
well,
passion
yeah, I mean,
thing.
while I would never do stand up comedy just for the money. I wouldn't have got into it for the money. I get into it because it's the thing I would do if I had to pay them.
Right.
And I'm sure Jay Leno still feels like that. I
Yeah.
mean, what is more fun to do in comedy? I can't really think of anything at this age.
No, I still love to do guest spots. I still love to just do, show up and do 20 minutes somewhere. Anything like that. It's like, it's fun. Killing is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss when I would go up anonymously in front of a crowd, like when I would go to Tempe to open for somebody, like I opened for David Tell and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's got a great crowd. I'll never forget that. And I would think in the back of my head, like, wait till they get a load of me. They have no idea who I fucking am.
And you got to earn those jokes.
And you got
to
did.
earn those laughs. That's the beautiful thing about not being your crowd. And that was one of the cool things about the Comedy Store, is that if there was 15 comics on stage in a night, they weren't all there to see you. They were there to see
Right.
Jesselneck. They were there to see Whitney Cummings. They were there to see a lot of people. Yeah.
I never got in at the Comedy Store. No, I always went to the Improv, Laugh Factory, Comedy
Improv's a
Magic.
great club too. I fucking love the Improv. Yeah, I miss that place. Are they doing shows now?
They're doing shows.
They're back.
They're back.
out?
Yeah. Everything. And their room looks beautiful too.
Nice.
They remodeled it.
Well, one thing that I really did miss was stand-up, and I didn't realize how bad I missed it until we did it again. We did a show out here. It was like back in November when things were. It was right before I started doing the shows with Chappelle at Stubbs, which was this outdoor amphitheater, and we did a show at Vulcan, and Ron White went up, and that day, Ron was like, well, I'm basically retired. I'm basically retired. I'm not really going to do comedy anymore. Fuck it. I got money. I'm going to relax. I'm going to sell my plane. He's saying all this stuff, and then he went on stage, and he Ron's a fucking professional.
Yeah.
He talks all this shit, but he went over his fucking material with a fine-tooth comb, went up and murdered. And he came off stage, and I'll never forget this because I was going on after him. He grabs me by the shoulders. He goes, we are going to do this again. He goes, we're back, motherfucker. He goes, whatever it fucking takes, we're going to do fucking comedy. We got to do this again. Because you could tell he got that jolt.
Yes.
He got that injection, and he murdered. He's so good. He fucking murdered, and it was wild to see the sparkle in his eyes and how excited he was.
So when you do a set, and if you do it right, you're present 100%. You're in that moment. You're not, and for me, it's the only time of day I'm not thinking about tomorrow, and I'm not regretting the past.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried or regretting. I'm right there and so if
You
I
have
can
to be.
If you, because sometimes you lose it. Sometimes
Right.
I'm not in the moment. Sometimes I'm thinking about something else. But most of the time when I'm on stage, I'm 100% present. And when I have a set like that, it's like what people talk about meditation. They go, I meditate and I get energy. I get energy. I come off stage, I'm fucking, that's why you can't go to sleep at midnight.
Yes.
Right? You can't, comedian.
Well, it's real similar to a lot of other things that I enjoy doing because you have to think only about, like martial arts are like that. I think of martial arts like a moving meditation because you can't think about other things while you're doing martial arts. You have to think about that only. That's the only way to be good at it. And there's a few things, like that's what a lot of people like golf. It's the same thing. It's like, when you're hitting that ball, like Jamie could speak to this. I saw you cracked your driver, you fucking savage.
Yeah.
You fixed it?
That's right. I hit a little too hard.
All Jamie does is try to knock the ball as far as possible.
That's fun.
But when you're playing anything that requires a lot of concentration, there's a cleansing aspect to the archery is something I love too for the same reason. There's like when you're concentrating on just all your form and everything, all your technique is in line, it cleans you out. Like you can think about that. When you can think about something that overwhelms your concentration and requires you to be 100% present and in the moment. You're not checking your Twitter. You're not fucking seeing who's mad at you.
Right.
You're there.
Yeah,
You're there.
and you're timeless.
Yes.
Time goes by. You don't even realize it.
Yes.
It's like I read this book a long time ago called Flow.
Yes.
And it was all about being in flow state and all that stuff. And I used to get it sometimes when I played basketball, not as often because I wasn't that good, but I was okay. And so I could have some, good moments. But but stand-up comedy is the thing for me, and that's the thing that energizes me, and I would do it for fucking free. I was just thinking about this. About how I used to tell people say, hey, how's comedy going? I go, well, I haven't missed a meal yet, right? Like, I'm not starving, and so who cares? As long as I'm eating, what the fuck else do you want? I mean, I have an apartment, I have eating. What else is going on? I'm doing comedy. I show up, I drive to a place, I'm the center of attention, they're throwing a party, and I'm the guest of honor. It's fucking awesome.
And the people have a good time.
Yes, you're giving something to them.
They feel
There's
good.
a mutual, you're not taking from them.
Right. They walk out of there going, oh my God, that was so fun.
Yes.
That was so fun. And they leave and they want to come back and do it again.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
It's so you've learned a way to make what you're doing fulfilling for another person.
Yeah.
So they were getting fulfilled as you get fulfilled. It's mutual.
It's an exchange.
It's a sense. It's a form of love.
Yeah, it's love. There's a connection that you have with the audience, especially like a club.
But you know how an audience will share a consciousness.
Yes.
You know how audiences they all of a sudden have the same personality. Isn't that wild?
It's a form of mass hypnosis. It really is.
Well, Carl Jung talks about how we have a collective unconscious, and then some other people talk about how there's only one consciousness.
Yeah.
And so we're all just a part of that one consciousness, which is what I kind of believe. Separation is an illusion, that you and I are not separate, that we're actually, because we came out of the earth, we weren't dropped into the earth.
Yeah.
We literally came out, just like hairs on your head aren't separate from your body and not separate from each other. Even though they look like they are, they're all part of the same body. We're all part of the same consciousness. There was this guy who was a physicist or one of those quantum physics guys. That's how I call them, quantum physics guys. One of those quantum physics guys. He went to scientist school.
Yeah.
And and he talked about how, stop me if I told you this already, but if you're on a plane and you look out at the ocean and you see the white caps of the waves, well, you know that's the white caps of the wave. That's the crest of the waves. You know that because you've seen it up close. And so when you're in a plane and you see that, and he said, okay, so that's what the universe is. The universe is the ocean, right? It's one big consciousness, energy consciousness, and then the crest of the wave are us, everything you can see. So there's this big energy, and the crest of it is everything you can see. And I was like, oh, wow, that was pretty heavy duty. And so I saw him, he was talking to this guy, Eckhart Tolle, who I would love to interview and I can't get a hold of. But he was talking to him, and Eckhart Tolle is a mystic. Right,
Yeah.
he had sudden awakening one night. And
he's an odd character.
Oh man, he's
hard to wrap your head around that. Like that he just had one. Like I've read his story, and I was like, he just one day
so
had some sort of awakening.
So what the story he tells is that he had horrible anxiety. He would wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks and shit. I went through a period like that. I had that happen. And so one night he was up and he's having this horrible anxiety attack. And he said to himself, I can't live with myself anymore. And the next thought he was, well, who is me and who is myself? Am I two people? Who is me who can't
Sounds
live
like
with?
he lost his marbles.
And that created, he said, that created the space in my consciousness to kind of, whatever, see things differently. He went to bed. When he woke up the next day, he saw the coffee pot was vibrating. He could see the world as like the Matrix. He could see all that shit. And he didn't realize what had happened, but his thoughts had slowed down. He had stopped thinking by at least 80%, and he would just go and sit on a bench all day. And he would just be, and he would just be happy because he was present and part of, and he knew it. But he didn't know what had happened to him for like a couple of years. And then he was talking to some Buddhists, and they told him, oh, you stopped your thoughts. And so that's the thing they talk about it. You can't stop. I can't stop my thoughts. And all I think about all day is thoughts. And that's what the point of meditation is, to get you to stop your thoughts. You become present, and you stop identifying with your thought, because your thought isn't who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's the big problem. I can't do any of that shit. And that's why performing stand-up comedy is the closest I come to it, stopping my thoughts and becoming present. But Eckhart Tolle and that guy, that the physicist, physics guy, they're talking about the same thing. And they had talked about how they kind of came to the same realizations. He came from quantum physics and he came from mysticism. And they both see the same thing, the one energy, and it's remarkable. It's a YouTube talk. You could watch it again on YouTube. That's where I watch everything.
Yeah,
But there is no death. That's the thing people don't realize, right? So you don't die. I mean, you do, like this body kind of what we call dies, but it doesn't really, right? So death is not the opposite of life. Life has no opposite. Life is forever. When you die, the things that go into me go and fertilize a flower. And so the energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Energy can only change forms.
Sounds like the edible kicked in.
So, yes. So death is the opposite of birth. It is not the opposite of life. Life has no opposite. Now, I didn't make that up. That's Eckhart Tolle.
Right.
So that's when you realize that and then Ram Dass says that dying is like taking off an uncomfortable shoe. Don't be afraid.
Well, I always say that everybody wants to sleep, but nobody wants to die. Mm-hmm. Which is very strange, because you just shut off every night. And
Did you ever want to kill yourself?
No.
Oh, I have.
Yeah?
I had went at least twice in my life where I wanted to kill myself.
Why?
And the first time I had a clinical depression and I didn't know what was going on. It was like it just kind of happened, and I didn't know what was happening for like 6 months. And finally, I went to a doctor, and I got.
And you realized your levels were off.
Yeah. So they gave me. So I didn't know what. Yeah, I didn't. All I knew is I woke up every day, and it felt like everybody in my life had died. Can you imagine if everyone you knew died? Like that's how it felt. Like and there was just no light at the end of the tunnel. And so then the next time that happened was when I had my bone problems and my spine shrank, and I wanted to kill myself because I don't want to go through life like that. And that's when I got my hour special. So it was right then. My manager calls me and goes, hey, Comedy Central is going to give you hour special. And I was like, oh, motherfucker. Because now I have to live. I got to do this special because I got to fucking stick it in the ass of all those people who told me I wasn't going to make it. And all those people who said, you're an idiot for doing comedy. Why don't you get a fucking job? And so I'm going to do this special. I'm going to stick it in their fucking air, and then I'm going to kill myself. Wow. And that's what I was going to do. I think I told you about this already.
Yeah, I think you did. I'm remembering it now.
And then by the time I went to my shrink at the time, Schofield, and I told him this. He goes, well, you're going to adjust. I go, I don't want to adjust. You don't get it. I don't want to fucking live like this, and I'm going to kill myself. And he goes, you're not going to kill yourself. You're going to adjust. And by the time my special came around, I did adjust, and I didn't want to kill myself. And so he was right, and here I am, and I've adjusted, and I'm living the happiest part of my life ever.
And how many people out there that are thinking about killing themselves really just need to get through whatever they're at right now and get some perspective on the other side of it?
Yeah, and because you know what, there's no out. You're a soul, you're a spirit, you're a consciousness, and if your physical body dies, you still have to keep living. There's no out.
You sure?
No. But this is what these people tell me, right?
Yeah,
this is
it
what
sounds good.
Ram Dass gave this brilliant speech, right? This is after he went and got trained by the Maharaji. It's like from 1976. And he starts out his speech, he goes, what I'm going to tell you tonight is how it is. It's not my opinion. This is how it is. And I just love that kind of confidence.
That's the kind of confidence you get from buckets of acid.
Yes, which he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and Timothy Leary, and then he went and took the trips the natural way.
Duncan Trussell spent a lot of time with him.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. Duncan told me about how he met him. Duncan was in a depression when he met him in Maui. And then when his depression lifted, Ram Dass goes, like he knew. Like, how the fuck did that guy know?
Yeah.
But they're on a different, but he said, the speech I'm talking about, he talks about the 5 levels of consciousness.
Yeah.
And he talks about how it's like turning on a TV channel and you're...
Do you ever feel like when you get into these conflicts online and you get in these conflicts in your show that you're like disturbing your own consciousness and
Yes.
you're creating these negative... I'm a big believer in that. And I've avoided like attacks and stuff as much as possible because occasionally sometimes you just get so fucking frustrated.
Yeah.
It blurts out of your mouth. But
I'm in the business of agitating people.
Yes, you are.
I have to take it, and I'm gonna, the vote blue no matter who, and the shit libs are gonna come at me no matter what, because I'm telling the truth about. And the people always say, why don't you go after the Republicans more? I go, because I don't have any influence on them. That's not who I helped get elected. That you know what I mean? It's like I try to talk to them and convince them of my ideas, but the people who already are supposed to agree with my ideas and fight for them, and they're not, I'm gonna fucking call that out.
Yeah.
And so that's what gets me. So this whole thing about creating conflict, it's the weird thing. I'm in the business of kind of creating conflict.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to get around that.
And comedy, for sure, is a lot of it is about conflict.
Yes, 100%. Right. Comedy is about going against the grain, calling out the status quo, throwing the spitball. Right? That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And that's the beauty of me being in the journalistic space is that I am the real outsider. I don't want a job. And man, does that change everything, Joe?
Changes everything.
Even people I love in the independent news space, you see them get self-censoring, co-opted.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for something, or they want to get it. Oh, I got to start being nice to people because I want to have guests on my show and stuff like that. You see them start turning. I don't want to piss off politicians, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Politicians are supposed to be fucking afraid of us.
Right.
And if they're not afraid of you, then you're doing something wrong. And again, the only way you can influence a Democrat is to stop voting for them. And I stopped voting for corporatist warmongers a long time ago. And I think if we look, for instance, what if we would? Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, and everybody voted for Hillary Clinton anyway, right? Everybody on the Democrats, they vote for her, and she lost anyway. Well, what if everybody who voted for Bernie Sanders, who was pissed off that she cheated him, and they cheated us, and they ran a crooked primary, what if those people withheld their vote from Hillary to make a statement, and then she lost by 15%? We still would have had the same outcome.
Right.
Donald Trump was going to be president anyway. But we would have had now power over the Democratic Party because now we made a statement. We did exactly what Lawrence O'Donnell said. Now they have to come to us. They can't win without our vote. Well, that's never going to happen. But what might happen is that we could have a third party that starts polling at 10%, and now neither party can win without them. So now you come to... See what I'm saying? Because most Trump voters are for single payer and ending the wars, and the Democrat voters are the same. So now who's going to vie for us, and we can swing the election. And that's the point. So people say, well, you have to have a majority before you can get anything done. You don't. Just like the Freedom Caucus and the Tea Party proved, you can have a minority that has leverage. So if we have a third party that starts, I'm working on this thing called the People's Party with Nick Braun. If we have a third party that starts polling at 10%, that's all you need to have leverage now. And people go, well, I don't want to vote third party until there's already a lot of people voting for a third party. Well, that's not how it fucking works. To get a lot of people voting for a third party, you have to start. Someone has to start. And so I think if you keep voting for these two rapacious oligarchy parties, you are complicit. And so I stopped.
Jimmy, I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you,
I'm glad
brother.
you're
Are you
out
warm?
there, brother. I'm glad you're out there. Yeah, I warmed up.
Okay. All right, thanks
I
for
really
having me.
am. I'm glad you're out there. I really appreciate you.
And I really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
having this show. We're really lucky you have this show.
I think I'm lucky too. We're all lucky. All
Yeah.
right. Bye, everybody.